Hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome to City of St. Gabriel Council meeting tonight. Today's day is Tuesday, September 21st, 2021. I now call this regular meeting to order at 6:36 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance led by Mayor Liao. Please arise and place the right hand at your heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now you may be seated. Thank you. Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Liao,
Here.
Vice Mayor Ding,
Here.
Councilmember Harrington,
Here.
Councilmember Menchaca,
Here.
Councilmember Pu.
Here.
Okay, thank you. It's closed section report. Our city attorney will now give the closed section report from the special meeting held earlier this evening. So go ahead, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The City Council met in closed session with their labor negotiator to discuss negotiations with the following employee organizations: the San Gabriel Police Officers Association, the San Gabriel Police Management Group, the San Gabriel Firefighters Association, the San Gabriel Fire Management Group, and all unrepresented employees. There was no reportable action taken. Mr. Mayor, that concludes the report.
Okay, thank you very much, Keith. Now we will have some announcements from our chief city clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight's meeting is live streamed on Cable Channel 3 and our online platforms. Please email all public comments to cityclerk@sgch.org no later than the time the item is considered by the council tonight. Comments will be read for up to 3 minutes each. Comments received after the end of the public comment section will be forwarded to the City Council after the meeting. If you wish to be added to the distribution list to receive City Council agendas, please email your request to cityclerk@sgch.org.
Thank you. Next item is approval of the agenda order. Are there any objections to the agenda order? Any council member? Hearing none, the agenda order is approved. Okay, well, there's no need to vote. So Assistant City Clerk, next item, please.
Presentation A, Proclamation for Hispanic Heritage Month. Mayor Liao will make the presentation.
Thank you. I have the City of St. Gabriel Proclamation, Hispanic Heritage Month. Whereas Hispanic Heritage Month is an official celebration of American citizens whose ancestry can be traced back to Spain, Mexico, Central and South America, and the Caribbean. A recognition that started as a week-long celebration in 1968 and 20 years later expanded to dedicate a month recognizing the generation of Hispanic Americans who have positively influenced and enriched our society. And whereas the objectives of Hispanic Heritage Month are to create a greater awareness of Hispanic contribution to American culture, to illustrate the diversity of Hispanic community, and to encourage a greater curiosity within young people about the rich history and cultural heritage of Hispanics. And whereas Hispanic Heritage Month uplifts a cultural legacy that shares values rooted in rich traditions that harbor a deep commitment to family and community and enduring work ethic and perseverance to succeed and contribute to society. Now, therefore, I, Chen Ho Liao, Mayor of the City of San Gabriel, California, on behalf of the City Council, Vice Mayor Tony Dean, Council members John R. Hampton, Denise Menchaca, and Jason Wu, do hereby proclaim September 15 through October 15, 2021 as Hispanic Heritage Month in the City of San Gabriel, and encourage the community to celebrate a collective progress shared with the Hispanic community, learn by seeing the strength and derives from our diversity, and honor a shared spirit of self-determination, dignity, and respect for cultural heritage. Dated September 21, 2021, Chen Ho Liao, Mayor, Tony Dean, Vice Mayor, John R. Hampton, Council Member, Denise Menchaca, Council Member, and Jason Hu, Council Member. Thank you. And I know Councilwoman Menchaca has further comments regarding the celebration of this Hispanic, well, it's a month, but before was a week. So go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I wanted to just add some historical content here because there is some confusion. The dates actually are, as you said, September 15th through October 15th. So it's not really a month, it's 31 days. And the reason that's taken place is because it started off as Hispanic Heritage Week, then expanded it, as Proclamation said in 1988, to be the month. But they kept September 15th because that actually coincides with the National Independence Day for Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. And then, of course, Mexico, well, not of course, but my parents were from Mexico. Mexico celebrates September 16th, and then Chile celebrates on the 18th, and Belize on the 21st. And then October 12th is Columbus Day, or now as it's referred to as Dia de la Raza. So that's why it's September 15th to October 15th. Not necessarily a month, but it is 31 days. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. I believe the Asian Heritage Month has the same thing, because of different ethnic groups from Asia, and they celebrate different week. But anyway, thank you for your information. Next item, please.
COVID-19 update. Presentations will be made by Fire Chief Wallace and Police Chief Harris.
Good evening, Mayor Liao, Vice Mayor Ding, and members of San Gabriel City Council, as well as the San Gabriel community. I'm Steve Wallace, Fire Chief for the City of San Gabriel, and I'll give you a brief update tonight on COVID in the city and its impact on fire department operations. As we wade through this sea of pandemic and the ever-changing environment, there's a little more good news this week. You may have seen that California, when surveyed, has the lowest case rate in the United States. So lowest rate out of 50 states, which is pretty remarkable given we're the most populous state in the union. Within Los Angeles County, the 7-day test average is dropping again. As of today, it's down to 1.53%, with a huge increase in the number of people being tested. So that's good news as well. We're continuing to see a decrease in hospitalizations in the county and a consistent decrease in fatalities over the last 2 weeks. Data presented today for all of Los Angeles County, including the Long Beach and Pasadena Health Departments, this report reported only 6 new deaths yesterday. Within the city of San Gabriel, we now have a grand total of 3,600 cases. We also have sadly had 211 fatalities in our city. This is an increase in both fatalities and deaths since our last update, but it is not a significant increase overall. For those keeping score at home, our vaccination rate has climbed almost 1% since our last report. We're up to 85.9%, up from 85% 2 weeks ago. Within the fire department, we've had 2 members that have recently been fighting the infection. I'm happy to report they've both recovered fully from their infections, although one does have a side effect from a fall he sustained during his infection. He's expected to recover fully and return to work soon. Our skilled nursing facilities continue to do an outstanding job at their infection control, and we can report for 1 more week, no new infections and no fatalities amongst patients or staff. The patient census in these facilities continues to grow, and vaccinations are keeping up with new admissions. So all good news there. And just to touch one more time on booster shots, I know in the past couple of weeks, we've been talking that the 25th September is when it was estimated that we would see booster shots for the general population. But as I'm sure you've heard, last Friday, the FDA advisory board met and did not approve a booster shot with Pfizer for the general population. They did go back and include healthcare workers and people over 65 and with precarious healthcare histories for approval for booster shots with the Pfizer vaccine, but that's as far as it went. And then more recently, you may be hearing that Johnson & Johnson is starting to share data on their 1 and done shot that actually may be a 2-shot to get maximum efficacy. They're showing data that shows 94% efficacy against the Delta variant with a 2nd shot. They're saying 2 months after their initial doses. Should be noted though, as well, there's no approved 2nd shot for Johnson & Johnson. Our staff is always monitoring situations, and if anything critical comes out, we will update everyone as the information becomes available. And that's my end of report for the night.
Thank you, Chief Wallace. I guess next one is Police Chief Harris. Go ahead, Chief.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of council. My name is Gene Harris. I'm the police chief for the city of San Gabriel, and this will be a police department very short COVID update. We are still conducting our operations at 100% efficacy. We are in the community making sure to respond to any service needs that this community may need. And we are operating at just about 100% of our operational capacity. Recently, on the 17th, we had one of our members test positive, but there have been no symptoms. And fortunately, there's no serious injury or issue with this particular employee, and he's just observing the COVID protocol. Our stores for our PPE are robust and remain so, due in great part to donations from members of the community and the business community. We're very thankful for that, and we'll continue to monitor things in the community, working alongside our city partners, county partners, and state partners to ensure that we're adhering to all of the rules. As it stands, we are still following the protocols with regard to trying to gain voluntary compliance where voluntary compliance can be called for. And if that changes, we'll be sure to notify the community if there are any changes to that. And for us, that is the end of our report.
Thank you, Chief Harris. Is there any question for both chiefs? I do have a question for Chief Wallace. So today I ran into one of our community seniors, and she told me she took the booster shot already, and I guess she booked online and through one of the CVS stores. So she got the booster shot, but it's Pfizer. But as I understand, most of our residents took Moderna. So can these people take Pfizer's booster shot?
That's a good question, and I've actually heard that a couple of times. And so let's get that information out there. You need to get the same shot that you originally had. The shots aren't interchangeable. So if you've had Pfizer, you need to get a Pfizer. If you've had Moderna, when that becomes approved, which it's not yet, you'll need to get Moderna. You do need to follow the same manufacturer.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, that's a good answer. I will tell them just be patient and wait. Another question is, even though we don't have any jurisdiction of the school districts, but the kids are going back to school, and I've heard age from 5 to 12, they have pretty soon they have vaccines available to them, because for some reason there's a study And this came out and shocking everyone. It was 75% of the students who are infected with virus if they don't have a vaccine. So how, yeah, so, well, because the kids, can transform the virus to parents. So it's going to affect all our community anyway. So I think that's very important. Do you have any information regarding those vaccines for young kids? Because I know from the beginning of the study, they said, well, we give, 1/3 of the doses, but I know it's coming, but have you heard anything, any confirmation from FDA or CDC?
I don't have any information that points towards any current confirmation or approval for the ages and the age group of 5 to 11, which does seem to be a lot of research and a lot of data being presented in that. Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson are taking a look at that, and I haven't followed the Moderna in that age group, but I believe that they are as well. But to the best of my knowledge, right now, there's nothing approved in that age range.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. Next item, please, clerk.
Public comment. This is the time set aside for members of the public to address the city council on items of interest that are not on the agenda but are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the San Gabriel City Council. And Mr. Mayor, we do have one general public comment tonight. It comes to us from Fiona Reimers, the Adult and Teen Services Librarian at the LA County Library in San Gabriel. And it reads as follows. San Gabriel Library is pleased to announce that on Tuesday, August 10th, the Board of Supervisors voted to make LA County Library fine-free. No new overdue fines will be accrued on any accounts, and all existing late fines will be waived. We would also like to invite the public to our book club for adults, which meets every third Wednesday of the month. We currently meet online, but we hope to begin meeting in person soon. Please contact San Gabriel Library for more details. And that concludes the comments.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar are considered routine, and recommendations will be approved in one motion unless a member of the City Council or public requests separate discussion. We have not received requests from the public to pull any items.
Okay, thank you. So we don't have any council member wants to pull separate item for discussion. I see none. Assistant City Clerk, please take the vote.
You need a motion.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
I'll move. I'll
Okay.
move.
Moved by Council Member Menchaca. Is
I
there
second.
Second by Council Member Pu. And Assistant City Clerk, please take the vote.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Councilmember Menchaca,
Aye.
Councilmember Pu,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Ding,
Aye.
Mayor Liao.
Aye.
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, great. Next item, please.
Public hearing item A, 700 to 800 South San Gabriel Boulevard. Planning case numbers ZC 18-001, zone change and plan development overlay zone and development agreement. TMAP 18-005, tentative tract map and environmental impact report, EIR, applicant, Pacific Square San Gabriel, LLC.
Okay. I now open the public hearing. The staff presentation will be made by Senior Planner Matt Chen. Yeah, go ahead, Matt. I guess you have the PowerPoint.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. For your consideration tonight, a mixed-use development at 700 to 800 South San Gabriel Boulevard is presented in front of you for your consideration. If you can go to slide number 2, please. The subject site is about 5.85 acres and covers the entire city block to El Monte Street to the north, East Grand Avenue to the south, South Gladys Avenue to the east, and San Gabriel Boulevard to the west or to the left, as you can tell from this aerial pictures. The project site is currently vacant, and the project site used to be San Gabriel Nursery with greenhouse or nursery buildings. But the project site is currently vacant. Next slide, please. This is a kind of a Google picture taken from the northwest corner, which is the corner of San Gabriel Boulevard and El Monte Street, kind of to the north up on San Gabriel Boulevard, looking down at the project site. As you can tell from this picture, the project site is currently vacant, and the fence has been fenced off to provide any loitering activity at the project site. Next slide, please. There's a different picture taken from the northeast corner, which is the corner intersection of El Monte and Gladys, which is more to the east or right side of the project site. And next slide, please. This is a different angle taken from San Gabriel Boulevard, which is the southwest corner, which is San Gabriel Boulevard and Gladys Avenue. Looking at the project site, I can tell by the current conditions, and as part of the project, some of the above ground utility will be underground. Staff will get into that discussion a little bit later. Next slide, please. The last kind of aerial, last Google Street picture is this is taken from the southeast corner, which is the corner of Gladys and Grand Avenue. As part of this project, the project will be required to underground the utility lines along Gladys Avenue. As you can tell, some of the power pole along to the right side, which is Gladys Avenue, and the part of the paving will be repaved on Gladys Avenue, as well as a four-way stop sign will be installed at this location. Next slide, please. Staff would like to provide a kind of overall description of the project. The project is requesting a zone change and also a planned development overlay for the project site. And the current zone is C1, so the applicant is proposing to have a C1/PD, which stands for C1/Planned Development Overlay. And as part of this project, the applicant is hoping to entertain a development agreement with the city regarding the proposed project. And the project itself will include 243 residential units, and most likely will be a condominium, which is kind of for sale type of residential units, and also 8 live-work units. Live-work units are a type of a unit that the occupant or the resident will live on the second floor, but he or she will have the commercial working space on the downstairs, whether it be an office or small retail business. So that's why we call it live-work units. And as part of the overall project, the applicant is proposing to have a 76,000 square feet commercial area that includes a restaurant, cafe, and a fitness center, as well as a market for this project. And a unique feature about this project, the applicant will have approximately 33,000 square feet of central park or central plaza space to provide open space for the general public. The central park is not fenced, so the general public from the surrounding area will be able to walk to the central park area, enjoy the amenities as well as some of the retail opportunities. Next slide, please. The entitlement required for this project will be a zone change / plan development, and development agreement will be part of the zone change application. The tentative tract map is for residential and commercial condominium purposes. those entitlement will require planning commission recommendation, which staff took this project to planning commission back in July of this year, and planning commission recommended approval to the city council, and the city council will be the ultimate decision maker of those two entitlements. If the project is approved by city council, the project itself still subject to design review commission approval for the architectural design, which is precise plan of design, and master sign plan is regarding the signage as well as public art for this particular developments. So if council approve this project, there will be still other review process that staff and the applicant need to go through before they can begin construction. Next slide, please. The slide in front of you is a brief history of the project, kind of project history, and staff provide a more detailed day or timeline of the project history way back in 2017 when the applicant provide a community outreach prior to their submittal in 2018. And there were several previews in the last couple of years, City Council preview, Planning Commission preview, Design Review Commission preview, and also the applicant took this project to the Historical Preservation and Cultural Resource Commission, talk about the history of nursery site and the family that was owning the site, as well as the applicant's effort and try to create some type of public art to recount the history of the nursery locations. And in July of this year, Planning Commission recommended approval of this project. And next slide. This is kind of a site plan of the overall project, and St. Gabriel Boulevard is actually on the south end, so the north is to your left. So the project is divided into two buildings. They call it 700 Plaza, which is to the right or on the north side of the project site. 800 Plaza, which is to the south, to the right. And on the 700 Plaza, they will have a fitness center proposed to be at the corner of St. Gabriel and El Monte. And the proposed market or grocery market will be at the 800 Plaza, which is at the corner of St. Gabriel and Grand Avenue. Okay, next slide, please. This is a proposed rendering of the 700 Plaza, which is on the north side. And this pictures, or this photo simulation is just generated at the corner of St. Gabriel and El Monte Street to the north. And staff like to mention that after staff's presentation, also council's question for staff, the applicant will have a very thorough, detailed presentation, talk about the history of the project and the design intent, and also their community outreach effort regarding this project. Next slide, please. This photo simulation is taken on the south end, which is at the corner of St. Gabriel Boulevard and Grand Avenue, looking at the 800 Plaza, which is the building to the south end. And the applicant plans to have a market at this location. Any truck movement will be kind of going to this location to serve the market. Next slide, please. And staff provides additional analysis regarding the proposed project, including the general plan goals applicable to this project, and the land use, which the C1 zone does allow a mixed-use development. And for the live-work units, currently the St. Gabriel Municipal Code does not allow live-work units. However, our Mission District specific plan, as well as Valley Boulevard specific plan, they do allow live-work units. So as part of this plan development overlay application, the applicant is requesting council to approve live-work units, which will provide a different type of a housing opportunity for small business owner that would like to utilize this type of housing configurations. And as part of the plan development applications, the applicant's asking to customize the development standards, which is staff details in the staff report regarding the density, the building height, setback, lot coverage, and FAR. And for the open space area, the project does meet the open space area requirement in the municipal code by providing close to 33,000 open space in the Central Park Central Plaza area. In addition, each condominium residents will have their own private usable space within their areas. So there'll be additional open space area as well. Next slide, please. The project, this project does meet the parking requirement by providing a net of 65 additional parking spaces that could accommodate any potential change in tenant usage, for example, from commercial to retail. That will increase the parking demand, but this project will have a net of 65 spaces to accommodate any change in tenant occupancies. And there are multiple driveway access to this project site. There'll be 4 for the commercial visitors, 2 for the residential occupants. The architectural design of this project is a contemporary design, and as staff mentioned earlier, that if council approved this project, the project is still subject to design review commission approval for any architectural related and also landscaping related design before they can go into plan check construction phase. As part of this proposal, the applicant was looking into a development agreement with the city to talk about the term and also conditions of this project. And for off-site street improvements, the project will provide many public works, street improvements or off-site improvement, including new street lights, new sidewalk, paving, also as underground utility of several couple streets with overhead utilities. As part of the impact fee staff mentioned in the staff report, staff would like to update the council regarding the latest impact fee estimate based on the most recent calculation prepared by our public works staff. In the staff report, the impact fee was mentioned to be 1.5 million. And according to the latest calculation prepared by staff, the most updated impact fee will be more double than that. So it will be more than 3 million impact fee instead of 1.5 in the staff report. And staff can explain the reason for those changes. One is the impact fee list in your staff report was based on a rate that was 2020 rate, and every August, city will update the impact fee based on a new construction index, new formula. In this case, the 2021 August rate was increased by 7%. So that will increase the impact fee the developer will have to pay. And the second item is the previous calculation, the one was $1.5 million, that include a credit for the previous nursery and greenhouse building that was previously at the site. And staff has evaluated those square footages and determined that those square footage are ineligible to receive a credit. So therefore, the most recent updated impact fee calculation is more roughly based on the proposed project, which is 243 residential units and 76,000 square feet of commercial space. So the updated impact fee calculations come out to roughly more than $3 million, more double than what's listed in your staff report. So staff would like to make council aware of the latest rough estimate prepared by staff. Next slide, please. And as part of this project, the project requires an environmental impact report, which is EIR. This started in August of 2018 with a notice of preparation, which is to solicit input from the public regarding the preparation or direction of this environmental document should be. And the city staff issue a request for proposal to have an outside consultant, which is ESA, to prepare the environmental documents. And the draft EIR was circulated for public review during December of last year and January of this year. And the final EIR was released in June of this year. And next slide, please. For public noticing, we notice surrounding property owners and tenants within a 500-foot radius of this project site. And 4 signs or posts were posted at the project site, 1 facing each street frontages. And City Council agenda for this meeting were posted at the City Hall and various locations. And the project is noticed in the San Gabriel Sun for newspaper notices purposes. Next slide, please. At the end, staff is recommending the council to adapt a resolution certifying the final EIR and also approving TMAP 18-005, which is a tentative tract map applications. And the second item is move the full reading, introduce ordinances for the zone change, plan development overlay, as well as the development agreement. And the third item is to schedule a second reading and adoption of the ordinances. And before staff concludes, staff would like to mention that in addition to staff and also planning manager tonight, we also have public works staff as well as city CEQA consultant from ESA and also fee and peers to answer technical questions regarding CEQA or CEQA documents. This concludes staff's presentation and staff is ready for any question.
Okay, thank you, Matt. So does any council member have technical or factual questions for staff to clarify the report? Is there anyone? Matt, I just have a quick question. So besides this project have live work units, is there any other already developed project in the city has live work units?
Yes, there was a project approved, staff member, probably 4 or 5 years ago on Las Tunas Drive. If I remember correctly, the address is 416 East Las Tunas Drive. That has a live work unit. I think they have residential in the, commercial in the front, but also staff believes they have 18 or 15 live work unit. That project also went through a plan development process because on Las Tunas, they don't have their own specific plan. So that project also went through a plan development overlay process to get the live work unit concept approved by the council.
Great, thank you. Yeah, you're correct. It's 416 East Las Tunas Drive. Okay, thank you. I guess if no other council member have questions, we'll now have the applicant's presentation made by Ken Lee, Vice President, Pacific Plaza Premier Development Group. Is Ken here tonight?
Yes, Mayor, I'm here.
Oh, hi, Ken.
Thank you, Mayor and staff. Good evening, Mayor Liao, Vice Mayor Ding, and Council Members Harrington, Menchaca, and Koo. My name's Ken Lee. I'm the Vice President of Development for Pacific Plaza Premier Development Group, and I'm representing the owners tonight of Pacific Square San Gabriel. We're very excited to be before you tonight, as this hearing represents obviously a critical milestone in a 5-year-long journey for our project. The property was actually purchased back in the summer of 2016, so you can imagine that this truly has been a journey and a labor of love for us in many ways. But this journey has been well worth the trip, including the time, energy, and resources invested in our community engagement process and the resulting refinement of our project and what it has to offer to the community. We also wanted to express tonight our appreciation for the stellar work of your highly professional staff and consulting team, and wanted to give special thanks to your community development and public works departments for also spending countless hours in meetings and on many, many Zoom calls with us as well. So thank you to those departments. And in the next slide, I'd like to introduce our team to you, including 2 members who will be co-presenting with me tonight. Actually, can I bring up the presentation?
Sure, go ahead.
Next slide, please. From our design team, we have Rick Abe from Media Portfolio, our lead design architect, who you'll hear from toward the tail end of our presentation. We also have Simon Lee and Tim Fan from SLA Architects, who are on the line with us for Q&A. We have Brittany Knott, our lead civil engineer from Fusco Engineering, who prepared the tentative track map and conceptual grading plan that's in your packet. She is also online with us for Q&A. Brian Norcott, he's not online, but he is our commercial listing broker from Newmark, and he joined our team at the very beginning of our journey along with his partner, Bill Bauman, and that's when we were still in escrow to purchase the property, when the retail concepts for this project were just starting to be conceived. They were really in their infancy stages. And I'll just note that this is highly unusual for a project like ours, but was very important because we put such a heavy early emphasis on understanding and evaluating, as well as exploring the local and regional retail market before we put pencil to paper on any designs. Also co-presenting with me and Rick tonight is John Bury, our community engagement lead from Stratoscope, who will guide you through the community outreach steps taken throughout our project's journey. Best and Krieger is our legal team, including Elizabeth Hull, Amy Hoyt, Ali Tarani, and Alicia Winterswite. Amy and Ali are online with us for Q&A as well. Next slide, please. The main focus of our presentation to you tonight is a thoughtful and deliberative community engagement process we implemented at the very outset of our project. And what you'll see is an iterative dialogue that helped us formulate what we really believe to be a win-win-win for the community, the city, and this project, which provides needed housing to the region, preferred retail amenities for the broader community, communal gathering space, and park space that's publicly accessible, as Matt mentioned during his presentation, and a project on a commercial corridor that will act as a catalyst to spur additional investment to the corridor, including local businesses nearby, who you'll hear from later as support letters have come in. We really believe this project can and will be a gem for the city, the community, and for us. And I think it's no surprise that given the size of this site, this really is a signature project for our company. We have other projects that are in the pipeline and under construction, but this really is a gem for us, and that truly is the case. Next slide, please. A crucially important aspect of the project and our journey, as you all know, is the recognition of the history of the property and the legacy of the San Gabriel Nursery and Florist to the city, the region, and the horticultural community. For this very reason, we were deliberative in engaging in multiple conversations with the Yoshimura family to better understand the history from the family's perspective and to make sure that any tribute that we make to the nursery and family that's done in this project is done tastefully and appropriately from their perspective. The history of the property has really informed and guided how we've engaged the community and designed the project. And later in our presentation, Rick Abe will walk you through key elements of our project design, including public art concepts that seek to tell the story of the property, the nursery, and the family in an appropriate manner. We're committed to continuing to work with the Yoshimura family as these concepts are refined and ultimately come to life in the project. Next slide, please. I'd like to now hand the presentation over to John Bury from Stratoscope, who's going to talk about the road we took to get to tonight. John?
Thanks, Ken, and thank you, council members, for your attention tonight. How did we get here tonight? How did we get to tonight? We started this effort, as you heard earlier, when we purchased the property back in 2016, nearly 5 years ago. Next slide, please. Immediately, we began working with the community to shape the project that would best serve the city and the community through interviews and formal workshops, as you can see here, for nearly a year, sort of having these conversations one-on-one and in group settings to collect the feedback to shape what the project would become. Next slide, please. So we actually had, as I mentioned early on, 2 formal workshops where we requested and incorporated feedback from surveys, as you see here on your screen, and we invited people through mailings, newspaper ads, and emails to reach the broadest cross-section of community members to give input in this very early stage. And this is an example of what we did at that time. Next slide, please. We started with a blank slate. You saw the aerial earlier of the blank property. I think this image gives you a great understanding that we knew the surrounding zoning of dense multifamily to the east, commercial and multifamily to the west, and then single family to the west and northwest. that we knew that this significant parcel would be ideal as a mixed-use asset to serve the immediate and wider community, that it wasn't just for the immediate neighborhood, but for those reaching San Gabriel as a destination. Next slide, please. So we had three key concepts, as you see here. These are early phases that were developed between the first and the second workshop. So even from that first workshop, we took the input and made some renderings for folks to take a look at as a place to start. Next slide, please. And what we came up with is the one you see here. This is where we started with the design. It was evolved to what you've seen in the packet and what we'll present in a little bit later. But this, again, even just looking at this map, you can sort of see things that are not in your packet today because we continue to talk to the community about what they wanted as the project evolved. Next slide, please. The key concepts, though, became clear from these community conversations and community workshops. Number one, and really number one, the community and heritage, right? That there is significance in this site. Ken already mentioned it. You'll hear a bit more about it. That we needed space for this community to continue to gather. This was all, again, all this feedback came in 2017, 2018, before where we are today, which is even more important to have a community gathering space. And that there was a context here in this neighborhood specifically. We also heard that there was a retail dining desire for grocery store, for retail, for dining, that it was kid-friendly, that there'd be a tribute to the nursery. All these things we heard, in addition to what you might expect for any project, which is what's the impact going to be on the community and how can we make sure we address that? And that's what came through in the iterative process that we undertook. Next slide, please. So 9 months later, you can see here, we submitted the first plan. These are the first formal plans that were shaped by the community input that we received. And then, next slide, please. We continued. We continued with community engagement. We came to the Planning Commission and to you, the council, in mid-2019 to keep you informed. And we took your advice to continue to re-engage the community because the process had been going on for some time. So we took that to heart and we did. We went back to everyone we had spoken to and new people with individual interviews and conversations, as well as a walk and talk with residential neighbors. We went door to door with a lot of the single family to the west and the multifamily to the east, as well as another formal workshop you can see there in December of 2019 to continue to refine the proposal, the project that you see before you here tonight. And it was to get input, to give answers, and to give updates. Next slide, please. And we did that through a project website that was continuing to be maintained. This is an earlier version that you can see here where we posted all the feedback that we got when we were still in that sort of iterative phase. We wanted stakeholders to have a place that they could get up-to-date information, access the development team as we worked through the process, and really provide a place where people could continue to give us comments and feedback as the process went forward. Next slide, please. And as we talk about those three formal workshops, you might look at this and think, oh, here's a workshop where someone spoke at the front and talked the entire time. But I want to draw your attention to the back left of the room here. You'll see it says station number 3. I think it's 3, or station number 2 or 3 there. That's what we did. We did a series of stations. There were 5 stations around the room where the project team was assigned and was able to interact one-on-one, answer questions, solicit feedback, on formal comment cards, but also have those conversations where you're pointing at maps and really engaging with the community. We wanted to make sure that this was less of us talking to the community and more of us talking with the community. That is really the engagement that we had here. A lot of folks will simply broadcast information. What we did was try to work to collaborate with the community to develop the best project possible for the city. Next slide, please. And when we heard from the community wanted, from the earliest phases and into this next phase, we heard that they wanted, and then we created open space for both tenants and the public as gathering space for the community. And this is a bit of what we came up with here, and you're going to hear about that in a bit. Next slide, please. That came directly from these community meetings. So the result of these countless conversations resulted in this initial concept that you see here. You can see this early version didn't have the driveway and signal at Pearl that you see in your packet now. Next slide, please. You'll notice, though, from the start, we included step backs and a focus on pedestrians on San Gabriel Boulevard. We didn't want to come right to the curb on these projects. So that was very early on. Next slide, please. You'll also notice from this initial rendering that we, from very early on, took into account the grade, that this isn't all one level as a property. And so you can see the difference there on the street as you head north. Next slide, please. So in 2020, we began the year with more engagement as we planned to do more tours, on-site events, more conversations in person, more door-to-door. We started even in that first month of, or it's actually second month of 2020 with door-to-door conversations to all the businesses. In language, we had multiple language of the project team able to speak to all the different business owners along San Gabriel to talk about the project. And we were really excited about the work we were going to do in March and April and May of 2020. Then the pandemic hit. Next slide, please. But as you can see, it didn't slow us down. We continued with adaptive virtual engagement, including a virtual tour that was still on our website where we walked residents and neighbors and other interested parties through the project on a virtual platform. We also held a workshop on the future of retail and development in the face of COVID. In the middle of the pandemic, we realized we're never going to build the same way we did before the pandemic. So what is retail and restaurant going to look like in the future? Great conversation there in partnership with other organizations. And then we continued to present, as you heard, at the Historic Preservation Commission, to 2 DRC meetings as a preview, and then the approval at the Planning Commission in July. Next slide. But we wanted to make sure that we didn't take virtual as the only option. We did whatever we could following the best safety protocols from the county when things started opening up in late June to host a community celebration, something that we had wanted to do very early on. And we were able to invite the neighbors. We went door to door, knocking on doors, hanging door hangers to all the adjacent neighbors in the apartments and the houses to invite them to come to the property. You can see here in front of you to sample local restaurants and really come together to say, this is going to be what it's like when we're built. This is going to be a community gathering place. And so the timing was perfect that we were able to do this just at the end of June. Everyone that needed to be was masked, and you could see it really brought out people that had not been engaged even before because there was a new opportunity to do so. So much time had passed, and you can see the positive results from the smiles on your faces that you see here today. So now I'm going to hand it back to Ken to walk you through the details of the project.
Thank you, John. Next slide, please. And I will say that event was quite fun. In fact, it was one of those really hot summer days, and I ran around purchasing canopies for the event, and then the clouds rolled in, so it was just perfect timing. The site plan that you see here is really what's before you for tonight's hearing. And as you saw with the project timeline, this was truly an iterative process and a labor of love. In fact, this site plan was the 5th formal submittal to the city during our application process. And that doesn't even include the dozens of permutations between submittals we reviewed both internally and externally throughout our plan review and the community engagement process that John described. And a lot of factors go into those permutations, including project economics, but clearly the community engagement process was front and center and really drove a lot of our discussions around creating public spaces. But we welcome this thoughtful and intentional process because we really did recognize from the beginning how important this property and its history meant to the city and the community. And what you're seeing on the screen, just for clarification, is the ground floor plan of the project. So please keep in mind that there are 4 floors of residential above each of these 2 buildings. We didn't want to do, as we were developing the design framework for this and going through the community engagement process, was to create a massive super block that maxed out the property or our building footprints on the city block. Instead, throughout our design permutations, we focus heavily on how the project, the buildings, and the public spaces really engage the surrounding neighborhoods, the on-site residents that will live there, but also visitors coming to shop and eat. And through that process, the central focal point of the project really became the Central Park and Plaza area that's between the north and south buildings, which Rick and I will describe in more detail in just a bit. What you also don't see here is what's shown on page 26 of attachment D in your packet. That's the color packet that we included for visual representation of the project, which illustrates not only the Central Park area, but the large private open terraces surrounded by the residential buildings. And those two terraces combined is about 50,000 square feet of more open space that's for the residents. Next slide, please. Actually, one of the maps that Matt was showing you during the presentation was actually showing some of the residential ingress and egress. But I also wanted to clarify for you the access points to both get in and out of the project, and especially the main public entryway of the property on San Gabriel Boulevard, where Pearl Street ends traveling east. As John mentioned, we didn't have a central entry at this point when we first developed our concept plan, but through dialogue with Public Works as well as with the city architect and staff, everybody agreed that it was really important for us to create a grand entrance to the property and the project that showcases the Central Plaza and Park through this new signalized intersection. There's a page in your attachment D, which is page 28. It shows the visitor circulation in and out of the retail plazas and parking areas. So those are the four access points or driveways off of El Monte, Gladys, Grand, and here what you're seeing is San Gabriel Boulevard. That page also shows right turn in access from San Gabriel Boulevard for cars traveling north. But what we really wanted to clarify just real quickly here is that as part of the project, this new traffic signal will also allow southbound cars on San Gabriel Boulevard to safely turn into the project using a protected left turn lane and with a dedicated left turn signal at that intersection. Cars can also enter from Pearl traveling east. The new signal will also allow cars to safely exit onto San Gabriel Boulevard. And furthermore, cars exiting onto San Gabriel Boulevard will be restricted to northbound right turns and southbound left turns. They won't be allowed to head straight west onto Pearl and into the residential neighborhoods so that we don't create traffic in those neighborhoods to the west. Next slide, please. So we know the big question on everyone's minds is who's coming? Which new retailers are going to come to town? And mission critical for us is really securing our anchor tenants, which on this site map are on the far left and far right. Matt mentioned to you, there's a proposed fitness center on the northwest corner and a market on the southwest corner. Once these anchors are secure, the rest of the tenants will fall into place. That's why these anchors are so critical. But we wanted to still show you a smattering of the potential tenant mix of the project so that we can explain that what we're really seeking here is a daily needs shopping center for the community with a heavy emphasis on food uses that complement the open space areas that folks can gather, and there can be outdoor dining as well. Prior to COVID, we were in active negotiations for those anchors with a national market chain for that southwest corner and the National Fitness Club chain for the northwest corner. Although COVID threw everyone for a loop, we're continuing and we'll keep pushing hard and working with your staff as well. Domenica here is online, has been great to work with, and we're going to keep securing those leases for these anchors. Also, we've looked at our original targeted tenant mix for this project, and we recognize how retail uses, especially restaurants, have had to pivot hard during the past 18 months in response to the pandemic to weather the storm. And we want to move out of this pandemic with an eye toward emerging retail trends so that we have a project that is relevant not only today, but for many years to come. Next slide, please. In fact, our iterative design process has actually given us a unique opportunity to pause and respond to the challenges of the pandemic and engage in dialogue with economic thought leaders as well about how the retail world needs to adjust and adapt to the current pandemic and likely future ones. So we use the time to re-examine our retail space facing the Central Park, but more importantly, facing San Gabriel Boulevard. We've looked at examples like these of restaurants that have not only looked at ways of maximizing indoor and outdoor airflow, but have also used outdoor patio seating to create a greater level of engagement of the retail space with the pedestrian realm and the street. Next slide, please. The next two slides are all about the art of making lemonade out of lemons from this pandemic and show conceptual renderings of our storefront spaces along San Gabriel Boulevard. This is along the southern portion of our project. You saw from the initial renderings that John showed that all you saw were glass storefront facades. Next slide, please. But these renderings show how we want to use our outdoor patio spaces to both engage and activate the boulevard. We want to take advantage of our high 22-foot ceilings on the ground floor level by pushing back the front fenestration or facade walls of the retail spaces to create a balance between indoor and outdoor seating, much like the photos I just showed you. John and I recently had lunch, in fact, on the back patio of Big Catch at Alhambra Place. I'm not sure if any of you have been there, but I would encourage you to go into that back patio space because that building actually has these folding doors that create a seamless transition from indoor to outdoor. And it's a good example of flexible patio areas that maximize airflow indoors. Next slide, please. Another focal point of our design evolution, which was raised by and discussed with the Design Review Commission during our 2 preview sessions with them, is how our project can engage the pedestrian environment along Gladys Avenue, rather than turn our backs on Gladys, and create points of interest that lead into our Central Park and to our retail spaces. This image shows the use of art panels that would be placed where the actual parking structure is, and they pay an homage to the nursery while also creating interest on Gladys Avenue leading into the Central Park. What we didn't want to do was simply have a parking garage for folks to look at as they walk along Gladys Avenue. Next slide, please. The next few slides show how the Central Park has evolved to be responsive to community dialogue, including how the park space offers communal gathering areas where people, especially families, can spend evenings and weekends enjoying our beautiful Southern California weather, and how the park space can also be programmed for community events, such as concerts in the park like the city's Summer and San Gabriel events, as well as night markets or similar types of events. Next slide, please. And to provide a sense of scale and a point of reference, the park and plaza space shown on the previous slide, which is just on that eastern portion, is about the same size as Plaza Park in front of Mission San Gabriel as shown here. So we just wanted to give some point of reference for you. Next slide, please. And you can see here that the Gladys Avenue art treatment and nursery homage continue into the Central Park, where you see this tribute grove of juniper trees, which we will make our best efforts to relocate from San Gabriel Boulevard. Those trees actually have a story of their own that involve the nursery and the family. Our goal is really to create a communal activated space here that our neighbors and visitors can both enjoy. I'd now like to invite Rick Abe from Media Portfolio to describe in more detail the elements of our Central Park design features, including the public art elements that tell the story of the nursery's history. He'll also be guiding you through a video tour of the space as well. Rick?
Thank you, Ken. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Rick Abe. I'm the design architect. I'm more than happy to add a deeper description as it relates to these specific areas. We've had some great discussions with the Yoshimura family, and I'm excited to design elements of the Central Park to honor both the family and to tell the integral story of the San Gabriel community. The Yoshimura family is very humble, and as Ken mentioned, and I assured them that we would design a dignified and honorable tribute. Like the Yoshimuras, my family is Japanese American and went through the internment experience. As an architect, I understand the need to tell the inspiring and positive story that came from a very difficult time in our history. But this is really less about national injustice and more about the legacy of the Yoshimura family and how the site symbolizes the true community of San Gabriel. So looking at this slide, if you look at the tribute grove, which is at the center of the image, there's a banded pathway where engraved stone pavers describe the different chapters of the story. Lining the walkway on either side is a grove of juniper trees, as Ken mentioned, and these are the trees that are recommended by the Yoshimura family. When you end the walkway, you're at the center of the park. The water feature and the sitting area are part of the tribute grove and where we will finish the storytelling portion of the landscape elements. Public art is represented throughout the project in a variety of ways in multiple elements, and we're happy to show you some of those through the 3D animation that will follow. But I thought it was important for you to know that we've thoughtfully addressed the integration of art and history and architecture all within the kind of the development and the design of the project. Next slide, please. These are more recent images, renderings of the project from each side. You've seen some of the before versions of this, and we've been trying to thoughtfully create how the pedestrian experience allows people to experience both the buildings and the spaces in between, and that they're designed together in a thoughtful manner. Next slide, please. And I believe you have to click it. So Ken mentioned the size of the Central Park, but this short animation will help communicate a sense of scale and experience. This first section leads you off of San Gabriel Boulevard. These plazas will provide indoor dining for the cafe and restaurants. The integrated paving that you see helps slow cars that are accessing the site and will also help guide pedestrians. You can see some of the elements, kind of the signature elements throughout the plaza. The next portion of the Central Park is highlighted by a terraced grass seating area and a shade pavilion. It should also be noted that we designed the park to allow for full native soil, which allows for full-size trees. So all of those palm trees that you see and the trees along the side, they're not over any kind of parking structure. So we have the ability to maintain full size. This last section is dedicated to the tribute grove, which we described a little earlier. All these three areas and all the different elements combined seamlessly as the Central Park for both the development residents and the community at large. And Ken, I'll turn it back to you if you have closing comments.
Thank you, Rick. Just wait for the animation to end. Next slide, please. I just want to close out our presentation by emphasizing again the heart of this project, that it really rests on the vibrancy and the dynamics of the project's uses and amenities, including the retail elements, needed housing, community space, including the park, the tribute to the nursery's legacy, but very importantly is activation of San Gabriel Boulevard, as we talked about earlier, but also being responsive to the lessons we've learned from the pandemic. Other project amenities and benefits that I just wanted to quickly note are we'll have EV charging stations in the residential and commercial parking areas that far exceed the Calgary Building Code requirements. There will also be conveniently located parking stalls designated for food delivery drivers. Again, another lesson from the pandemic as food deliveries increased through DoorDash, Postmates, Uber Eats, and the like. But also as described in attachment E, which is the market analysis prepared by Kaiser Marston Associates, you will see that there's projections for more than $337,000 in new property and sales tax revenues for the general fund in the first year of operation, and almost 8.7 million of revenues over 20 years, not to mention additional pension override dollars as well. I also did want to clarify, Matt mentioned that there was an update to the fee amount. While we were excited to see the lower number in the staff report, we do understand that the current estimated impact fee is actually $3,890,000. So closer to 4 million. That doesn't include some of the other fees that are proposed in the development agreement as well. So next slide, please. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions you have about what's been presented tonight in the plans in your packet. Thank you for giving us the time to make this presentation to you. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Ken. Yeah, thank you so much. This is very impressive. And I want to thank you. You're taking 5 years to reach out to our community and ask for their needs and desires. But I guess next item is public comment. Chief City Clerk, please read any comments received.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have quite a few comments this evening. The first comes to us from David Coley and reads as follows. Dear honorable members of the City Council, as a neighbor and San Gabriel stakeholder, I request that you approve the proposed project at 700 to 800 South San Gabriel Boulevard. This project will provide a destination for residents to shop and dine. The new open space is an asset to the community, and we look forward to a local space to gather. This project will benefit the community when built, and I encourage you to vote to approve the project. We are super excited to have this project kick off and look forward to it improving our SGV community. The next comment is from Jason Liu, a resident on Gladys Avenue, and reads as follows. Dear honorable members of the San Gabriel City Council, I am a neighboring homeowner. I strongly support the 700 to 800 San Gabriel Boulevard development of mixed commercial and residential use. This project will improve the community with ecological responsibility, stimulate business growth, add jobs, and serve the public. Please allow this project to proceed so that greater San Gabriel Valley residents and visitors can all benefit together. The next comment is from Megan Lau and reads as follows. Dear honorable members of the City Council, as a neighbor and San Gabriel stakeholder, I request that you approve the proposed project at 700 to 800 South San Gabriel Boulevard. I live in the Mission Walk community and have been waiting over 5 years for this lot outside to be developed. This project will provide a destination for residents to shop and dine. The new open space is an asset to the community, and we look forward to a local space to gather. This project will benefit the community when built, and I encourage you to vote to approve the project. The next comment is from Doug Richter. Honorable Mayor Chin-Ho Liao and members of the City Council, as a resident of San Gabriel, I request that you approve the proposed project at 700 to 800 South San Gabriel Boulevard. This project will provide a destination for residents to shop and dine. The city will finally have an American market to shop at without having to visit Alhambra or South Pasadena to shop. Therefore, this project will benefit the community when built. There are a few problems, though, that I have with the intersection of San Gabriel Boulevard and Pearl Street. First, the site plan, page 2 of attachment D, shows a left turn pocket for southbound San Gabriel Boulevard for cars wanting to turn left into the plaza area. Yet the visitor vehicle circulation plan, page 28, shows only right turns in and right turns out. It doesn't show any access from southbound San Gabriel or direct access from Pearl Street. Second, the site plan, page 2, shows a marked crosswalk across the south leg of San Gabriel Boulevard at Pearl Street. Yet the after picture, page 14, shows the crosswalk on the north leg of San Gabriel where it exists today. These plan sheets should be corrected to show the actual final pavement markings and access moves into and out of the project. The next comment is from Sylvia Gerstner and Dan Gerstner of A Complete Car Care Center and reads as follows. Dear honorable members of the City Council, as a neighbor, Mission Car Wash, Tia Gladys Restaurant, and Mission Express Lube, we request that you approve the proposed project at 700 to 800 South San Gabriel Boulevard. This project will provide a destination for residents to shop and dine. The new open space is an asset to the community, and we look forward to a local space to gather. This project will benefit the community when built, and we encourage you to vote to approve the project. The next comment is from Michelle Frerich, Executive Director of the Asian Youth Center, and reads as follows. Dear honorable members of the City Council, as a neighbor and San Gabriel stakeholder, Asian Youth Center wants to recognize Pacific Plaza Premier, the developer at the Pacific Square San Gabriel project planned for 700 to 800 South San Gabriel Boulevard. This developer has been an excellent corporate partner, contributing to AYC and the communities we serve through both contributions and volunteer hours. In 2020, at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic and safer at home shutdown, the Asian Youth Center identified a critical and growing community crisis with food security. AYC scaled up our emergency food program from serving 50 families once a month to more than 400 families 2 to 4 times per month over 8 weeks. AYC published a call to the community to donate and support the emergency food program, and Pacific Plaza Premier responded to our call. They made a generous donation and mobilized an army of local businesses and community members to also make donations. This funding helped carry the emergency food program through until pandemic relief funds, foundation, and government funding kicked in. As a result, AYC was able to serve every family in San Gabriel that needed food. AYC is in fact honoring Pacific Plaza Premier Development Group for their commitment to the community at our gala in October this year. We encourage the City Council to consider Pacific Plaza Premier's commitment to the community as they vote on the Pacific Square project. The next comment is from Daryl Miller. Dear honorable members of the City Council, as a neighbor and San Gabriel stakeholder, I request that you approve the proposed project at 700 to 800 South San Gabriel Boulevard. This project will provide a destination for residents to shop and dine. The new open space is an asset to the community, and we look forward to a local space to gather. This project will benefit the community when built, and I encourage you to vote to approve the project. The next is from Deborah Hilberg. Dear honorable members of the City Council, as a neighbor and San Gabriel stakeholder for the past 31 years, I request that you approve the proposed project at 700 to 800 South San Gabriel Boulevard. This project will provide a destination for residents to shop and dine. The new open space is an asset to the community, and we look forward to a local space to gather. This project will benefit the community when built, and I encourage you to vote to approve the project. The next comment is from Sandy Roscoe and reads as follows. Dear Honorable Mayor Liao, Vice Mayor Ding, and members of the City Council, thank you for the opportunity to address you regarding the proposed development at 700 to 800 South San Gabriel Boulevard. As the Executive Director for the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce, I am advocating strongly in favor of this proposed development. Over the past several years, I have had the privilege of personally meeting with and getting to know Mr. Ken Lee, Mr. John Gueri, and their entire development team. I have also attended the many town hall and community engagement meetings they have held. I have been impressed and encouraged by their sincere commitment and dedication to listen to the voices of the residents, businesses, and community stakeholders. It has become more and more evident that they care deeply for San Gabriel and are truly invested in our beautiful city. Along with members of the Chamber Board of Directors, Chamber members, and local residents, I attended the recent project preview pop-up held at the site. It was heartwarming to hear and see the excitement and hope surrounding this much-needed project. After 1.5 years of shutdown, coupled with feelings of loss, despair, and discouragement, this project is breathing life and hope back into our city. I firmly believe this well-planned project will provide a much-needed San Gabriel destination where the community at large can shop and dine. With quality open space at a premium, this project will provide a safe, clean, beautiful space to meet, build relationships, and foster a deeper sense of community. This project will also provide much-needed jobs. It will absolutely help rebuild the economy of San Gabriel. I strongly encourage you to vote to approve this project. Thank you for this opportunity. The next comment is from Tracy R. Wilkie and reads as follows. Dear honorable members of the City Council, as a neighbor and San Gabriel stakeholder, I wanted to add my voice to those advocating for the proposed project at 700 to 800 South San Gabriel Boulevard. This fits in perfectly with the city's goals on bringing both residents and people living outside the city together to shop and dine. This new open space is definitely an asset to our community. We look forward to a local space for us to gather. This project will benefit the community in multiple ways, so I strongly encourage you to vote to approve the project. Thank you very much for your consideration. The next comment is from Mitchell Stye, attorneys for the Southwest Regional Council of Carpenters, and reads as follows. Dear Mr. Chang, on behalf of the Southwest Regional Council of Carpenters, commenter or carpenters, my office is submitting these comments on the City of San Gabriel's final environmental impact report for the Pacific Square San Gabriel mixed-use project. These comments reiterate and supplement comments submitted by commenter on January 21, February 8, and July 12, 2021 concerning the draft environmental impact report, as well as the FEIR. The Southwest Carpenters is a labor union representing more than 50,000 union carpenters in 6 states and has a strong interest in well-ordered land use planning and addressing the environmental impacts of development projects. Individual members of the Southwest Carpenters live, work, and recreate in the city and surrounding communities and would be directly affected by the project's environmental impacts. Commenters expressly reserves the rights to supplement these comments at or prior to hearings on the project and at any later hearings and proceedings relating to this project. California Government Code 65009B, California Public Rest Code 21177A, Bakersfield Citizens for Local Control versus Bakersfield 2004, 124 Cal App 4th, 1184, 1199 to 1203. And Council, I'm going to go ahead and omit the references which are available from the City Clerk's office. Continuing, commenters incorporates by reference all comments raising issues regarding the EIR submitted prior to certification of the EIR for the project. Citizens for Clean Energy versus City of Woodland, etc. Finding that any party who has objected to the project's environmental documentation may assert any issue timely raised by other parties. Moreover, commenter requests that the city provide notice for any and all notices referring or related to the project issued under the California Environmental Quality Act, Cal Public Resources Code, and the California Planning and Zoning Law. And Government Code Section 65092 requiring agencies to mail such notices to any person who has filed a written request for them with the clerk of the agency's governing body. The city should require the applicant provide additional community benefits, such as requiring local hire and use of a skilled and trained workforce to build the project. The city should require the use of workers who have graduated from a joint labor management apprenticeship training program approved by the state of California, or have at least as many hours of on-the-job experience in the applicable craft, which would be required to graduate from such a state-approved apprenticeship training program, or who are registered apprentices in an apprenticeship training program approved by the state of California. Community benefits such as local hire and skilled and trained workforce requirements can also be helpful to reduce environmental impacts and improve the positive economic impact of the project. Local hire provisions. I'm sorry, time?
That was time, 3 minutes.
Thank you. The next comment is from Teresa Fung and reads as follows. Dear honorable members of the City Council, my name is Teresa Fung, the owner of Cheers Bar and Grill, Inc., located at 717 South San Gabriel Boulevard. And as a neighbor and San Gabriel stakeholder, I request that you approve the proposed project at 700 to 800 South San Gabriel Boulevard. For the past 10 years, the present stores and shops have not been stimulating enough to attract consumers from outside of San Gabriel, and I believe that this project will provide a great destination for new and current customers to shop and dine. This will shape and build the commerce on the well-known San Gabriel Boulevard. This project is also a great opportunity to improve and benefit the community and bring more people from neighboring towns like Pasadena to provide us all with more business. It would be great to have a local space to share among new and current customers. This project will also benefit our business and hopefully bring more traffic to us. Lastly, I think this is a great location for this project since we are right by the freeway and it will be an easy access for people coming from many directions. Because of all these reasons, I encourage you to vote to approve this project. The next comment is on behalf of Supporters Alliance for Environmental Responsibility. We submitted written comments detailing why the EIR for this project is inadequate, and I want to raise a few of the issues tonight. First, the EIR is deficient because it fails to analyze the project's indoor air emissions. We submitted expert comments of industrial hygienist Francis Offerman, who concluded that the project will expose future residents to significant impacts related to indoor air quality, and in particular, emissions of the cancer-causing chemical formaldehyde. According to Mr. Offerman, future residents of the project will be exposed to a cancer risk from formaldehyde emissions of approximately 120 per million, which is 12 times the CEQA significance threshold of 10 per million. Mr. Offerman's comments are substantial evidence that the project may have a significant impact, and the EIR must be revised to analyze and mitigate this impact. Next, the project will have a significant noise impact that has not been adequately mitigated. The EIR discloses that construction noise at homes across the street from the project could reach up to 83 decibels, far in excess of the 50 decibel daytime noise standard required by the general plan. To mitigate this impact, the EIR includes mitigation measure Noise 1, but this measure violates CEQA because it constitutes deferred mitigation, includes vague and unenforceable standards, and its effectiveness is unsupported by substantial evidence. The majority of the proposed noise attenuation measures are essentially optional, as long as the project applicant deems them infeasible based on any standard it chooses, since no standard is included in the mitigation measure. This mitigation also constitutes improperly deferred mitigation because it does not include performance standards or commit to mitigating the impact to a less than significant level. The shortcomings of this measure were raised in comments, but the final EIR did not adequately respond because the response did not address the mitigation measure's failure to include performance standards, or it's the vagueness and unenforceability of many aspects of the measure. In response to comments, the city revised the mitigation measure but did not resolve these problems. The measure remains vague, uncertain, and unenforceable, and most aspects are still only required where feasible, as determined by the applicant. In addition, the EIR lacks evidence indicating that this measure will reduce construction noise at nearby homes by 32 decibels, which is what is required for a less than significant finding. To conclude, we request the City Council decline to certify the EIR or approve the project, and instead send it back to staff to address the shortcomings raised in our comments and then recirculate the EIR. Thank you. The next comment is from Alexis Salamanca and reads as follows. Dear Honorable Mayor Liao, Vice Mayor Ding, and members of the San Gabriel City Council, thank you for the opportunity to address you regarding the proposed development at 700 to 800 South San Gabriel Boulevard. As the president for the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce, I am advocating strongly in favor of this proposed development. I had the privilege of personally meeting with and getting to know Mr. Ken Lee, Mr. John Bury, and their entire development team for the Pacific Square over many events they organized in the city of San Gabriel. I am impressed by their sincere commitment, dedication, diligence, determination, and eagerness to listen to the voices of the residents, businesses, and community stakeholders. Only the ones who care enough are the ones who make a difference. And John Bury and their entire development team not only make a difference every day, but they had gone the extra mile as well. Together with members of the Chamber Board of Directors, Chamber of Commerce ambassadors, Chamber members, and local residents, I attended the recent project preview pop-up held at the site. It was amazing to hear about the project that will give life to the San Gabriel Boulevard. I strongly believe it will become a destination to our city. The project will provide a mix of housing and retail options, as well as open space, which benefits adjacent neighbors and those throughout San Gabriel. I strongly encourage you to vote to approve this project. Thank you for this opportunity. The next comment is from William Alvarez and reads as follows. I am a member of the Southwest Carpenters, and I am currently out of work. Live close to the city of San Gabriel. I would like the project to help support local hires so I can help provide for my family. I also believe the project should use a skilled and trained workforce. Thank you for taking the time to read and consider my email. The next comment is from Kimberly Morales of Carpenters Local 213. Hello, I am a member of the Southwest Carpenters. I have worked or plan to work in San Gabriel. The environmental impacts of the Pacific Square mixed-use agenda number 5A will affect me. Thank you for your time. The next comment is from Brenda Garabay, also of Carpenters Local 213. Good afternoon. I am a member of the Southwest Carpenters. I have worked out or plan to work in San Gabriel. The environment impacts of the Pacific Square misuse agenda number 5 will affect me. Thank you for your time and consideration. The next is from Christian Ortega. To whom it may concern, I am an apprentice carpenter with the Southwest Carpenters. Regarding agenda number 5A, this project should be using a trained and skilled workforce that is local to the area during the construction process. I have family members who live and contribute to the local economy who should have an opportunity to work on this project. This project will affect them, and I hope you will do the right thing. Thank you for your time. The next comment is from Claudia Silva and reads as follows. Hello, I am a member of the Southwest Carpenters. I am an apprentice and part of a skilled and trained workforce. I have worked or plan to work in the San Gabriel area. The environment impacts of the Pacific Square mixed use will affect me, and also coming out of this pandemic, local hire is needed. Thank you for your time. My name is Claudia Silva. The next comment is from Pablo Felipe and reads as follows. Good afternoon. The Pacific Square Mixed Project deserves skilled and trained workforce. This project should be able to provide local hiring. I am a professional journeyman looking for an opportunity I think I won't be getting. Thank you for your time on reading this email. I appreciate all the tough you make. Best regards. The next comment is from Luis Terrazas. Good afternoon. The Pacific Square Mixed Project deserves skilled and trained workforce. This project should be able to provide local hiring. I am a professional journeyman looking for an opportunity I think I won't be getting. Thank you for your time on reading this email. I appreciate all the tough decisions you make. Best regards. The next comment is from William R. Manis, President and CEO of San Gabriel Valley Economic Partnership, and reads as follows. Honorable Mayor Liao, Vice Mayor Ding, and members of the City Council. On behalf of the San Gabriel Valley Economic Partnership, I am writing in support of the Pacific Square San Gabriel Mixed-Use Development Project located at 700 to 800 South San Gabriel Boulevard. Consistent with the mission and goals of the partnership, this project will provide a significant economic benefit to the city of San Gabriel and neighboring communities. Especially in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, the region and your local community needs important catalyst projects like this to re-energize our economy and spur additional private investment to the San Gabriel Valley. The former wholesale growing grounds of the San Gabriel Nursery and Florist has sat vacant now for more than 5 years. This is the largest undeveloped vacant parcel in the city of San Gabriel today. The developer is proposing 243 new multifamily dwelling units, 8 live-work units, and more than 76,000 square feet of retail and other commercial uses. In addition to creating much-needed housing and new retail amenities for the city and region, as detailed in the independent market study submitted to the city by the applicant, the project will generate more than $337,000 in new general fund tax revenues, property tax and sales tax, to the city in the first year, and more than $8.6 million over the first 20 years. It will also create more than 1,200 temporary jobs during construction and more than 200 permanent jobs upon completion. This is a landmark win for the city of San Gabriel and the San Gabriel Valley. In addition to the economic benefits of the project, the developer has gone above and beyond the call of duty in their efforts to engage both regional and local community stakeholders during the evolution of the project. We participated in several of the developer's community outreach events and appreciated the level and type of community input solicited by the developer. The San Gabriel Valley Economic Partnership has a 30-year history of advancing the vitality and quality of life in the San Gabriel Valley. The Pacific Square San Gabriel project will be a welcome addition to the city of San Gabriel and the San Gabriel Valley. It will utilize a vacant property to provide jobs, building needed housing, offer retail and open space amenities to the community, and catalyze additional private investment to the San Gabriel Boulevard corridor. I urge the City Council to approve this project. The next comment is from Johnny Sanchez, proud union carpenter and stakeholder of the City of San Gabriel, and reads as follows. My name is Johnny Sanchez. I am a stakeholder of the City of San Gabriel. I am opposed to the Pacific Square project. This project should hire local, skilled, trained, and certified workers like myself. As an apprentice carpenter and stakeholder of this city, it will disqualify me to be part of this project in my community. Being a skilled union carpenter apprentice, I pay taxes, which would help keep that within my City of San Gabriel. Unfortunately, non-skilled and trained workers more times than not get paid cash, which then the city loses money by not collecting taxes that fund community services, schools, and social services. Let's join other cities that have applied a skilled and trained workforce for private development projects in their cities. Thank you for your time. The last comment this evening comes from Richard Burns and reads as follows. Pacific Square Mix use agenda number 5A deserves skilled labor to do this project. Local hire would be much appreciated. Thank you for all you do. And Mr. Mayor, that concludes the public comment on this item.
Thank you so much, Chief City Clerk. I now close the public hearing. The time for public comments on this item has ended. Well, now it's time for City Council deliberation and discussion. Is there anyone who wants to start out a few questions or comments? Well, I don't see anyone raise hand. How about if I call everyone? Let's start out with Vice Mayor Dean.
So right now the discussion or the clarification?
No, that's discussion.
Okay. Yeah. Currently I'm Vice Mayor, but for the it's also living the San Gabriel. It's more than 17 years the resident. I glad to see our city have this kind of big project to give it to our community. Have the like more the nice place to the shopping and the fitness, and also have the historical park to let our community can use it. So yeah, for the whole plan, just a little bit like concern. It's still like I think most residents concerned to the traffic. So I saw that we have the new project have the new traffic light on the Pearl Street. That's good too to help access. It's a little bit concerned on also, yeah, I think it's on the El Monte have the traffic line too, right? So only don't have the traffic light. It's on the south side, Grand Avenue. Yeah. So and because Grand is so close to the Mission. So yeah. So how it's more like it's a good plan to make the traffic as a safety for the community. That's my concern. So I think the mayor, so you can help too.
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor Ding. For this project, there will be new traffic signal at the intersection of St. Gabriel and Pearl Street. So there will be a dedicated left turn lane. I think you've seen in one of the PowerPoints like that. Going southbound now on St. Gabriel Boulevard, there should be a dedicated left turn lane as well, traffic signal going to the plaza, the project. And also, Vice Mayor, you're correct that there's existing traffic signal at the corner of St. Gabriel and El Monte. So there will be two traffic signal going going to this development. And the one at the corner of St. Gabriel and Grand, it is, you're correct, it is very close to a mission, which is, there's another signal. So I think our Public Works Director, Greg, is on the call tonight with us. Maybe he can elaborate on the public stream improvement plans or any thoughts behind how to address the traffic safety circulations.
Sure. Hello, this is Public Works Director Greg DeVink, and it is commonly not a good practice to have so many signalized intersections within such a close distance. The project is adding a signal at Pearl, which is pretty much the middle of this project, and it is very close to Mission at Grand. There are traffic improvements proposed at Grand that will prohibit going straight across Mission and making left, or straight across San Gabriel and making left turns onto San Gabriel. Those are difficult maneuvers. That's by my office. It is what I commute through every day. And those maneuvers in rush hour are very difficult. So the project does propose some restricted movements that will enhance safety at that corner as well.
Okay, I don't know. My suggestion for this two-way stop on I think on the Grand you have a two-way stop, right?
Yes.
The Grand and the San Gabriel, right? And because this San Gabriel is for me it's like every day I driving by. Is it we can like put on? I just worry about on the Grand if the stop sign, if they want them both sides make a left turn, it's make like more dangerous. So maybe for the designer, maybe you can put on like a no left turn, only right turn, something like a suggestion. So yeah. So for the safety, yeah.
For traffic on Grand going west onto San Gabriel, it is proposed to post no left turns.
Oh, okay, that's great. Okay, all right, and okay. And the question also like I think I saw the total parking space. It's 900 something, right? For the whole project.
900. The project will provide 983 spaces. You'll be in 65 additional spaces, 64 more spaces than what is required.
Okay. And I saw the like for almost more than half for the residential. For the customer parking, it's like 400 something.
So the commercial space, the commercial portion of this project will be required to have 377. The project, I think there will be excessive additional commercial spaces to accommodate any potential change in tenant occupancy, for example, from retail to restaurant use. So there will be a delta, I guess, additional spaces to use.
So based on the report, it should be like within based on their square footage. So it's qualify our ordinary for the parking space. But I still worry about it. Is it because this is a hot space? Maybe too many people from the neighborhood coming in. It's just worry about the parking space. So for the I don't know, so have any like backup plan if just in case it's not enough parking?
Staff can take a kind of stab at answering the question. So first, responsibly, the project itself does provide 65 additional spaces to accommodate potential increase in change of tenants or increase in popularity of the development. But staff would also like to mention now that there are a lot of multiple family developments. For example, the Mission Walk townhomes to the east, and also the future assisted living facility just to the east of this plaza. Also, there are other multiple family to the south on Grand Avenue, and single family houses or some duplexes on the west side, which on the other side of San Gabriel Boulevard, which those are probably within a walking distance. Hopefully, this project will provide a lot of vehicle pedestrian activity to help kind of alleviate the potential parking demand for this plaza. So there are a lot of walking distance customers that could be within walking distance to utilize this plaza.
Okay, understand. Okay. Okay. The last one. Okay, so just want to see the most like for the commercial area. I saw the like retail restaurant. That's good. Have food. How about if just in case? I think the commercial area, is it allowed any like office can use it?
Yes, part of the plaza, they could accommodate office or just pure retail component. So that is allowed the C1 zoning, and the project itself will continue to allow what is permitted in the C1, which is restaurant, retail, office, or even medical office type of use.
Yeah, okay, because I think if you don't, it's if our office is good, but because the people that shopping and eating, probably they need to like do some and the office need to go into it's convenient for them. Okay, all right, okay, that's good. All right, yeah. For me, it's really want to see this nice the place can give it to our community to help them more opportunity to nice place to shopping. We don't need to go far away. Okay, that's my comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anyone else have questions or comments? I see raised hand by Councilmember Pu. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd first like to thank the staff for their hard work on this project over the last 3.5 years, and also thank the applicant for their sticking with the project over the last 5 years. I think there's a lot to like about this project. I think that a lot of iterations have been, a lot of changes have been made along the way, taking into account input and feedback from the community. I know that parts of the project were designed and redesigned over and over again in order to be able to accommodate mainstream market at the southwest corner of the project. And as Vice Mayor Ding had mentioned, these are uses that our community desperately wants and needs. And I overall, really like the design. I want to make a special comment about the tribute grove, because it's something that I've focused and emphasized on, over the last few years as well. And, to me, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to make sure that we commemorate and honor the legacy of the Yoshimura family, the internment experience that I think Mr. Abe referred to. And there's just so much here, which is, it's a local family that has survived the internment experience, came out and was able to continue on. I think there's a gentleman by the name of Mr. Bodie to whom the family had transferred the land to when they were interned, and fortunately that gentleman transferred the land back to them, and that didn't happen all the time. Many families lost everything that they owned when during that dark period of our history. And again, it's not to focus on the negative aspects of it, but I think here we have a local success story that ties into a really significant, period of our American history. So having that tribute grove there that tells the story, I think is, will celebrate in a way that local heritage and also provide for generations to come a touch point upon which we should never forget those types of those periods in our history, lest we be doomed to repeat them. So I really appreciate the effort that the applicant has made and the family too. I think the family was reluctant at first, but with continued conversations, I actually feel even more comfortable hearing Mr. Abe describe it during the presentation, and have him also share that his family has shared that same type of internment experience to, feel comfortable that the tribute is going to be tasteful, it's going to be respectful, and that the fact that the family is involved, I think, speaks volumes too, and that they, it's obviously with their consent and all, and I think that that is going to be a really unique aspect of this project that not every city can boast, not every site could boast. So it is very unique to this particular site and to our city. I wanted to ask a couple questions about the impact fees, because there is when I did see this, the impact fees total of 1.5 million, I thought that was extremely low for a project of this size. So thank you for clarifying that it's actually more like 3.9 million. But in regard to that, I want to point out something that hasn't been raised yet, which I think is also a critical component, which is that in the recommended conditions of approval, there's also an affordable housing in lieu fee included. And currently it's listed at $800,000. And I wanted to first ask staff, in recalculating the other fees, would this fee also need to be recalculated? There is some verbiage here. It's number 5 of the recommended conditions of approval. And I just want to know, is that a correct number, or is that something that also needs to be recalculated?
Thank you, Councilmember Pu. You're correct. City currently do not have a inclusionary housing regulation, which is to require a percentage of a project to be dedicated for housing purposes. And currently, we don't even have an in lieu fee requirement as well. So therefore, the applicant came out with this number as a public benefit as part of this project. So there's not a formula that city staff provided. So there's more applicants' contribution to the city as a part of a public benefit for the development of this project. So of course, this project has a development agreement tied to it. So there could be a part of discussion between the council member and the applicant talking about the actual contribution, how the amount should be calculated, that sort of items.
Then I don't know if Ken or a member of the applicant team wants to perhaps expand upon how you came about with this particular number. I mean, I see that the rate here is $3,187.25 per unit. And I did the math. It does come very close to 800,000. It's maybe like 5 cents short, or something like, or 25 cents short or something like that. But is that, where did these numbers come from?
Councilman Pu, I appreciate the question, especially in light of the change in the calculation for the development impact fees. If I can just kind of paint a broader picture here of what we have to do from the developer side to make sure that these projects are financially feasible. Given the size of this project and even the retail mix that we're looking at, there are a number of factors that we have to look at. And so the fact that we are looking at bringing in a market and also a gym into a mixed use setting with structured parking is difficult. And I do want to point that out because during our negotiations over the past several years, we, for lack of a better phrase, they had us over a barrel. We needed these tenants, and although they liked the space, the negotiations were tough. And so there was a difference in rent that we could achieve from other types of uses that was starkly different. And so if you were to assume that we could get rents at, let's say, $3 a foot with regular retail uses, we were looking at more like $1.30 for the market and less than $2 for the gym. That really equates to a large difference when you're talking about that much square footage. And so, when we look at the lost rent as well as the other costs, not just the affordable housing fee, but the public art formula, as well as the utility undergrounding, where we've looked at our dry utility costs as initial due diligence, and it's around 1.85 million. That includes the undergrounding of utilities along San Gabriel Boulevard, El Monte, as well as Gladys, and the signalized intersection, which is probably somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000. And so when we look at our pro forma, we look at how we can provide that public benefit, but also what the project can bear. And so that, that number is a reasonable amount from our perspective based on what we've looked at in past projects, but also is what we believe the project can bear.
Okay. So there's no magic to the $3,187.25 per unit.
No.
Okay, so let's see here. Let me just go on then from there a little bit, because I wanted to also highlight, I appreciated also the fact that there will be more EV charging stations within this project than what is going to be required, under California Green Codes. And I think that is going to be key. I mean, as we push towards a target of 50% of all vehicles sold being electric by the end of this decade, there's going to be greater and greater demand for that. And frankly, it's going to become, I believe, almost a marketing piece. It actually will affect the marketability of projects and plazas, commercial plazas, to be able to have EV charging stations, or at least be able to show that there's thoughtfulness put into sustainability. And recently the Focus Plaza on Valley and Del Mar installed a whole bank of Tesla charging stations, and I thought, really, how many Teslas are there around there in our community? But it has been full every day. Every day since they went into operation. And so clearly there's a demand out there. I think it's definitely the way of the future. And obviously, being able to help with sustainability is going to be a critical challenge and crisis that we'll collectively face, well into the future. So I just wanted to highlight those things: the Tribute Grove, the EV charging stations, the commercial mix. Thank you, Ken, for explaining. For members of the public, the rent per square footage of a supermarket is much lower than what you could charge for other types of uses. And so to a certain extent there, that is a reduction in value at the end of the day when you program for a market. Not to mention the additional infrastructure that needs to go into the project for loading and unloading zones, the ability for big semi trucks to be able to, come and supply the store, so forth and so on. So, yeah, I think that the only question that I have, I have some additional legal questions, or sort of more legal questions, perhaps for staff, because in looking at attachment B to the staff report, which is the ordinance that we would have to adopt to fully approve this project, they're not, there's Exhibit 1, which is just the map, and Exhibit 2, which should be the development agreement, or DA. But then in looking over these documents, they're not all well tied together. So I'm curious, is there any reason why we shouldn't have references within the ordinance to these other documents? So for example, in section 2 of the ordinance, this is ordinance number, or proposed ordinance number 678, we do refer to the map. It's, you know, such as it is, it's just a colored map of the area, where it says the official zoning map of the city is hereby amended to rezone the properties located at 700-800 South San Gabriel Boulevard from C1 retail to C1 PD as depicted on Exhibit 1, attached hereto and incorporated herein by this reference. Then section 3 talks about the development agreement, but there's no reference here, and I'm wondering why that's the case. It currently reads, the city council has determined that the proposed project and the provisions of the development agreement are consistent with and satisfy the relevant provisions of the city's municipal code, including the goals and objectives of the city's general plan. So I am curious if there any reason why we should not have a reference there to say that the development agreement attached hereto as Exhibit 2 and incorporated herein by this reference.
I assume that's directed to me, and you could certainly put that insert. I think that would be an improvement.
Okay, thank you. And the other thing too is then, you know, these pages that follow, at least as is presented here in the agenda materials, the Exhibit B that have the recommended conditions of approval. Now, I understand there's different things, right? There are the what are they called? Mitigation measures that are, you know, required under the EIR, and then these recommended conditions of approval, which can staff help me as to how these were developed? And were they developed through the planning process? Because it does also include some of these, maybe not some, perhaps all of the mitigation measures, in addition to some other things that are here at the beginning. So can staff provide a little bit of, history or explanation about that?
Yes, I can kind of start it. Typically for any project, entitlement project, we'd like to have a conditions approval to make sure the applicant is aware of the conditions associated with the project. So in this particular case, there are many items, including what the permitted uses should be, and also the required parking spaces, the procedures, and also even for the affordable housing in lieu fee that was previously discussed. And staff feel that that should be part of the development agreement, because they are tied into the kind of negotiation or discussion between the council and the applicant. So they should be part of the whole document, which is part of the development agreement. So therefore, they were in a kind of at the Exhibit B of the development agreement to list the term, the conditions, also the environmental mitigation measures. And staff felt that should be in one place instead of a listing of mitigation somewhere else. I think it's easier to have a more one central location to have all the conditions, mitigation measures in one place instead of going to different documents looking for mitigation measures for easier to referencing, but also easier to enforce in the future. Here's a list of the conditions that the applicant will need to obey to during the construction process, so on and so forth.
Yeah, understood. So this Exhibit B is meant to be the sort of end-all be-all, a Bible of all the conditions of approval for the project, including mitigation measures that are intended or to be implemented going forward. Is that correct?
Yes, and if a city council member has any suggestion on the improvement of the flow or the order of the development agreement, I think staff as well, city manager office as well, city attorney office can willing to look into it.
Okay, great. I mean, the only thing. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Councilman Pu. I wanted to add just one more important thing to what Matt said about the conditions of approval. This is also a document that gets recorded against the property. So having it all in one spot means that in the future, if we hope that it's never sold and that the developer we're working with is the developer that builds the project, but it prevents somebody from having to come into City Hall to find out what all the requirements are. And it's sort of a buyer beware that it's recorded against the property. So somebody knows what their requirements are going to be if they are to develop that site.
Okay. Just for members of the public, this is quite a lot of pages. The whole thing is very thick, and we received tons of information. So I may not have read the development agreement line by every single line, but I did not offhand see a reference to this Exhibit B, the recommended conditions of approval, in the development agreement itself. So I just would request staff that to ensure that these conditions of approval are actually tied to the DA, which is then attached to the ordinance, and that way we have a clear sort of legal enforceability with respect to all of these conditions. And then the last thing I'll say is I think it appears. I mean, I personally know quite a few of the people who commented with respect to the project, who, the vast majority of whom are in support of the project, including surrounding businesses. I mean, I don't think there's any question that once this project is built, it will completely revitalize this portion of San Gabriel Boulevard and really bring new life for a lot of the surrounding businesses. And I think that with respect to the comments made by the Southwest Carpenters, I read through most of the comment letter, which is very legalese. I won't say that I necessarily agree with a lot of the arguments made in it. However, some of the comments made by some of the members about being out of work and things like that. I guess I would just encourage the applicant developer to continue conversations with them. I think a project of this size, it is significant, and I think that there are already quite a lot of benefits that the project is providing for the community, and I think that without question, it would be a vast improvement, for the city and the community. Rather than an empty lot, we'd have this, what to me as a good-looking project that has a lot of commercial uses that the community really wants and needs, that has the tribute grove that I mentioned, that has sustainability, environmental sustainability in mind with the EV charging stations. And so I think that we really want to see this project come to fruition, and I think that that's why I led off my comments with appreciation for the hard work that staff has put in, as well as the applicant developer, because that is always a constant negotiation as well. And I think you've come to a really good balance. The fees, I think, are commensurate with the size of the project, and I think that that's a fair amount for just for members of the public. Some of these impact fees are like a police fee, open space fees, things like that. There's 4 or 5 different categories, and the additional affordable housing in lieu fee, I think, would be very, very much needed and appreciated, because as we know, that housing affordability is definitely another one of the crises that we face, and we're trying to move forward on an affordable housing project of our own, obviously not at this site, but at a different site. And if we're able to, the challenge is always being able to come up with the financing stack to make the to be able to make the affordable housing project feasible. So $800,000 is nothing to sneeze at. So appreciate that being part of the part of the fees that would be paid upon, the pulling of building permits. And I think that, I think that overall, I think it's a job well done by both staff and the developer to be able to bring this project from, kind of a blank canvas all the way to where it is now. And I think that, I just honestly, I actually, can't wait for them to start construction and have this thing built, because that would be, again, I just think it'll be such a big improvement over basically having nothing there. And I personally really, eager to see how this Tribute Grove turns out, and how the commercial uses, the mix of commercial uses turns out. I really do think it's something that the community is going to really appreciate. So those are my comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Pu. Anyone else? Yes, I see raised hand by Councilwoman Menchaca. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I too wanted to thank the applicant and their team, as well as our city planning staff. This is a very long process, and everyone stuck with it. And I think at the end, it's a great project. As many have already said, it's going to re-energize that area. It's going to make it walkable. It's self-sufficient, and I think it's something that we really need for our community. But I did have some questions, just possibly more clarification questions. But and I don't know who I should direct them to, so I'll just go ahead and state my question, and Ken or Matt or anyone else could just chime in. But my first question is, there's been a lot of talk about community outreach, and I saw, as I was reading it, talked about neighbors, mostly residents. But I wanted to see how much outreach has been done with the other surrounding projects, because this is starting to become a family of sorts of development. We got the Olson project. We have the Elegant, which formerly was known as Symphony. We have the existing businesses, whether it's Humane Society, the actual nursery. You have Gladys, you have Cheers. So there's a lot of family there that's kind of need to come together and see how they can work off each other, because everyone's going to benefit from this project. And so I think this question is mostly probably Ken. Could you share some of those conversations and how this is all going to kind of come together for everybody?
Yes, Councilwoman, I appreciate that question, because it was a really important part of our early discussions. We actually had, as John pointed out during his portion of the presentation, stakeholder interviews very early on. And so outreach to Mission Walk, we actually spoke with the Olson companies about their project, about the outreach that they had conducted, so that we could also learn from their lessons. But we also reached out to their HOA. We had several meetings with them, just in very close quarters, pre-pandemic, of course. But also, we took a tour of the animal shelter with Cindy Rigney, talked with her at length about their needs, and also understood the history of how the Olson Companies project also benefited them and how they worked together. We also reached out to the Elegance project manager, Rich Kors. We talked often throughout the entire process about both projects to make sure that we are complementing each other, but also coordinating, right, in terms of construction administration. And if we're going to dig a trench in the street, let's not dig it up twice. Let's only dig it up once and coordinate and work together. That includes also the utility undergrounding and how we would coordinate on those aspects as well. And obviously, with the nursery across the street, as we've mentioned, we had several conversations with them. But we are a San Gabriel Valley company, and so we also are familiar with many of the businesses, but also the development community as well. And so we certainly did not proceed any step of this process in a vacuum, and made sure that we engaged many of these stakeholders along the way to both understand their concerns, but also what they wanted to see. And so, that included the county water district staff that we reached out to early on as well. And so many of these stakeholders actually attended the workshops, spoke with us one-on-one, attended the tour. So there were many opportunities for them to engage with us, but we also had a lot of those one-on-one discussions as well.
Great, yes, because I know some of the letters during public comment were from existing businesses, and it is definitely a win-win for everyone. So I'm glad you're working together to, like you say, complement each other. Regarding the retail and dining list on page 25, I was just wondering, what kind of adjustments have you made with the potential tenant mix, given specifically the pandemic? Because I'm looking at page 25 and I'm not sure, is that pre-pandemic or is that post-pandemic? Where are we with this tenant mix? Is this pre or post-pandemic?
That's a good question, Councilwoman, and it's a little bit of both. And so, there are some trends that were already happening in the retail market along the way. And again, this is why we engaged Newmark at the very outset of the project, so that we could constantly be checking against trends. And I'll tell you, the retail market moves so quickly and changes so rapidly. Everything from gym uses, obviously, during the pandemic, which has raised a lot of questions. But I will tell you that despite the pandemic, the national chains are very intense and very interested in this site and this location. And so that personally surprised me quite a bit. But as I've spoken with our broker, he's educated me on what's going on. They're closely watching everything, all the different factors and variables. And so they're constantly measuring against risk. The gyms would not look to go into a space if they know they're going to fail. And so we take great confidence in that. The market has always been something that both we in the community and the city has wanted. And so that hasn't changed. I think when we talk about the rest of the retail uses, these are what I'm not going to say pandemic proof, right? Because nothing is. But a lot of these daily needs types of uses did survive through the pandemic. What you're not seeing here are a lot of sit-down restaurants, which were already struggling pre-pandemic. And then when the pandemic hit, a lot of those national chain restaurants just disappeared. And so they were already struggling economically. We all know in terms of minimum wage rates and whatnot. And so that's already been a struggle in Southern California, but it really wasn't necessarily a good fit for what we were seeking in terms of daily needs. So when we talk about these quick service restaurants, what's really going to be important, again, is not so much the tenant mix as much as how we design the space. One thing to be aware of is that coming out of the pandemic, as a lot of food uses have closed, that there's also going to be a lot of supply of retail space that's going to be on the open market. And so our job is to make sure that this becomes a Class A space, which provides these considerations in terms of design for outdoor seating, which is going to be really important, even as we talked about earlier during the council meeting about how California is faring better than the rest of the country. But let's be clear that this may not be the last pandemic. And so we want to make sure that this project is relevant in multiple ways, including the EV chargers, but also in terms of this design aspect for the retail uses.
So regarding the markets in particular, I think one of the public comments, they said something along mainstream, and I think that term has also evolved during this pandemic. I think it's called diverse market, or what is the new term now? Is it still mainstream?
Mainstream was a term that we heard throughout the community engagement process. We clearly understand that there's a heavy preponderance along Valley of a lot of Asian-oriented markets, and we understand, right? There is a desire for diversified types of markets, but I completely agree with you when we talk about mainstream that terminology has really evolved, both pre and post pandemic. But as we talk about things like 85C Bakery, for instance, they are in locations that you would have never expected maybe 10 years ago. I still remember when I was living in the Irvine area when 85C opened. I mean, it was like a 2-hour line just to get in. And so, a lot of these types of uses have really actually evolved in terms of not the use, but how the general consumers have responded to them as well. And so when we look at other types of markets, we are open to looking at ongoing, mainstream types of uses, but it may not be limited to just your prototypical quote unquote American markets, right? And so what we are committed to doing though is continuing to work with your staff as we are looking to secure a market to make sure that it fits within the general preferences of both the city and the community as well.
Okay. Yeah, because I had just noticed, like, for example, Northgate Market, which typically I believe caters to the Hispanic community. Would that be considered mainstream? I know that they do have some in El Monte, and I think it's in Baldwin Park, that area. And so when you say mainstream, does Northgate fall into that category? And so I was just going to suggest that. Again, in some communities, it's primarily Hispanic market, but they do have a little bit of everything. Just like our Asian market, if you have a chance, well, not you in particular, but if you ever have a chance to visit one of the Asian markets, I think people would be very surprised how diverse it really is. But anyway, I was just going to put a little plug for Northgate because I know they're very supportive of our San Gabriel mission, and they might be interested in coming to our city and to this particular plaza. So just a little plug there.
We appreciate that plug, and we'll follow up on that as well.
Great, thank you. Regarding the 8 units, live and work units, it was mentioned before that 416 Las Tunas, they have, and maybe I didn't hear correctly, but I thought I heard 15 units. So my question is, how do we derive 8 units for a plaza of this magnitude, and we have 15 units in Las Tunas? It could be just placement of the project, it just the interest maybe would not, didn't meet the 15 mark. Maybe somebody could explain that to me.
Councilman Machaca, maybe staff can provide a little background regarding the previous approved 416 East Las Tunas project, and Ken can elaborate on the market demand for such a space. For the 416 East Las Tunas, it is a mixed-use project. The residential, if staff remember correctly, the residential approval was for 33 units. It's either 15 or 18 units are live work, and the space, I guess the configuration of the space actually is you walk into a unit, and that'll be your office, and the bedroom's on the side. So it's not a different floor like what this one is. So this one is kind of a different configuration where you have the pure commercial space on the ground floor, and the second level is your pure residential living quarter. So the 416 East Las Tunas project is pure, like you walk into someone's room, that'll be your office actually. Then the side will be a bedroom. So that's the live workspace, that configuration that was approved. And I guess maybe Ken can elaborate on the market demand for a live workspace, how the A space came about. So.
Sure. Thank you, Matt, and Councilwoman. I appreciate this question as well, because this is one of the things that came out of the evolution of the project and the many iterations of the site plan. You might recall when John was walking through kind of the history of our community engagement process, but also some of the early concepts of the site plan. You may recall seeing both the food hall and some other retail uses along that backside closer to Gladys Avenue. This is one of the things that is not easy because when you talk about retail uses that don't have street frontage along San Gabriel Boulevard, not only is that space hard to lease up, it's hard for any businesses that locate there to stay alive. And so it was a very conscious decision and effort for us to actually transition those uses into what we believe is the most appropriate use, especially facing the park area and maximizing really that space. But having that ground floor level available for the appropriate types of uses that typically go into a live work, but also setting up these units as townhomes, really, where you have a ground floor commercial space and the live space above. There is a demand. And so when we, in the market analysis, also looked at townhomes and the demand there. And so that was all relevant for us as well. But as we looked at really the retail space that was furthest away from San Gabriel Boulevard, that's what we focused on looking at in terms of converting to these townhomes. And the square footages worked out in terms of what the demand was really bearing for these townhome type uses.
Okay, thank you. Well, since you mentioned it, that's my next question. I noticed that they're all condos or townhomes, but there's no apartments. So again, is there no market for apartments, or it just the economics just didn't make it feasible to be renting spaces out? It looks like from what I was seeing, everything has to be is being bought. So it's a condo townhome.
No, that's a very relevant question. And many of our early, some of our early projects, I should say, were 100% condos. If you look at our 300 West Main Street project at Alhambra, 120 condos, all pre-sold, pre-construction. But if you look at some of our more recent projects, including townhomes, which are unusual to actually have as rentals, we just completed 79 townhomes in Alhambra that rather than selling them because of the rental market, because it's so strong in the San Gabriel Valley, and this really has a lot to do with workforce housing, but a lot of younger families that are looking for entry housing that are still rentals before they take the plunge into their first home. That demand has really supported us holding, and as well as the owners and investors, their business decisions to hold rather than to sell. That's important to us because when we think about a project of this magnitude, also, 251 units is a lot. And so, no market is going to, residential market is going to absorb that all in, 1 month, whether you pre-sell or pre-lease or not. Right now, we haven't made a final decision as far as whether, how we're going to balance between for sale and for rent. What we are leaning toward is the possibility of selling, let's say the 700 Plaza, which is 102 units as condos, well, actually 106, including the live work, if those live work are going to be sold, and then possibly holding the 800 Plaza as apartments. There's also proposed phasing between the two so that there is some overlap to give the market time to absorb these units as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking about the families, how it's very difficult in the beginning to buy a house. And so an apartment is a great transitional mechanism for many small families or young couples. So thank you for letting me know about that is a possibility still to have apartments. So that's good to know. I also had a question about the in lieu of affordable housing, since we don't have an inclusionary, but I think I have my question answered with Councilmember Pu. The electric vehicles was also a question. Thank you for putting twice the minimum requirement. So that's definitely thinking about the future. But what about the solar? I thought I had read somewhere 25% solar ready. What does that mean exactly?
Right. So that's a good question. Solar ready and EV ready are terminology that's used as part of the Calgary building code, and staff can feel free to jump in and correct me in any place here as well. But when we talk about 25% that's solar ready, that's 25% of the rooftop space that has conduit that's installed and pre-installed as part of the construction and part of the building plan, so that we certainly can provide up to 25% of the rooftop space for solar. That's something that we evaluate when we go into our construction drawings, and we work with our dry utility consultant on both the EV side and the solar side, because we also have to look at what loads are required and can be taken into account. I will say that even though in the development agreement, we did offer 2 times the number of EV chargers that are not just ready, but actually will be installed. This is important to us, and not every developer really has placed a lot of value in this yet because they may not see necessarily the payoff. But as Councilmember Ku aptly said, this is happening whether we like it or not. It's coming, and so the last thing we want to see is whether residential or commercial is just have a project that becomes obsolete in 5 years or less. And so making sure that we provide EV chargers either as an option or as an amenity is really important to us. And that's very evident in some of our more recent projects, including a project in Alhambra where we have a 1-to-1 ratio of EV chargers to residential units there.
Well, then you might have to reconsider, put more. Did staff have anything to add to that, or it sounded complete, the answer? Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so I just staff just touched on a little bit. So the Cal Green Building Code requires 6% of the required parking spaces to be electrical vehicle charging stations. So staff just provide a number to the councils. So for example, 6% of the required is 918 spaces. They'll come up to 55 required. So for this project, actually, the applicant's willing to provide twice that number. So this project will provide at least 110 EV charging stations. Just, so staff would like to provide the number to the council members. So it's a figure. So.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. The Central Park, which is on page 32, I wanted to also just commend this really lofty endeavor of providing this historic tribute grove to nursery and to the Ushimura family. What I really appreciated also that something that was a very dark part of our history, the narrative is going to be very uplifting. That's what I gathered from listening earlier. And that does take a lot of time, but a lot of thoughtfulness. And I really appreciate that this project took that on, because it's very difficult to have a narrative that is painful, but at the end, it's been such a big part of this community. So thank you for doing that. I wanted to understand a little more about your vision for this open space. From what I can see, it's very self-contained, and so all the activity takes place within the plaza, so it should not be disruptive to the neighbors outside of the plaza. But as I was reading, and the visuals that you provided, there'll be definitely lots of green space, lots of trees. But what other kinds of activities were you thinking of? I heard a little bit about public art, concerts, maybe some food trucks. I mean, what do you envision in this area?
Yes, Councilwoman, that's a great question, because we spent a lot of time, focused on the programming for the space and what the community wanted to see as well. In addition to kind of passive recreation space and open space where folks can come with their families and picnic and whatnot. From an activity standpoint, we did start some initial discussions a while back, and we need to re-up them, is the possibility of both night markets or other types of events where we can bring food trucks onto the site. And so when we look at Gladys Avenue, what we wanted to do was make sure that we had a rolled curb along that back area, so that food trucks could possibly come up along those driveways to come around the Central Park area and set up their stations there. We talked about the possibility of a farmer's market. It's not probably sized quite well for that, but it is possible that we could have a smaller scale farmer's market. It's just a logistical challenge. How are they set up and whatnot, and where they park their trucks. And so, we're very open to these discussions. We've appreciated our early discussions with Rebecca Perez, your community services director, And we'd like to continue those discussions as we are in plan check and we're trying to finalize really what that programming might look like. And so, we've got some time still. As much as it's taken 5 years for us to get here, the plan check process typically is about a year before we can even break ground. And so we've got time to continue to work with staff on some of these questions for programming as well.
Well, I was going to actually recommend for you to talk to our community services department. I think typically that's not a connection you make with our development projects, but if you want programming, no better group than the community services department that's led by Rebecca Perez, as well as the Mission Playhouse, which she's also leading. Between those two groups, you can they can spend the whole afternoon with you, maybe even a day, to kind of share with you what is needed. So, before the building begins or the construction begins, to make sure, like you had mentioned, making sure maybe the food trucks to come in. But there's also some of the logistics. They are pros, they are professionals, and they can probably give you some really good insight. And so I was going to recommend, if you have an opportunity, please talk to them further as the plans get fine-tuned. I think you'll get some really good feedback from people who've done this over and over again, whether it's at the Mission Playhouse or our Vincent Lugo Park, Smith Park, Marshall Park, or just the streets on Mission District. So just a lot of valuable insights. So please check in with them.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that. And then lastly, regarding labor and negotiations, I understand that it's still a work in progress. I too would like to encourage some dialogue, but I understand that it's got to pencil out for both groups. And so I really sincerely hope that everyone sees that this is going to benefit the community. Whatever role you play in this community, it's going to benefit all of us. And so I'm hoping we can come together with our labor groups and somehow make this work for both of you. And I guess that's all. That kind of concludes my questions. I may have a few more afterwards, but that concludes my questions. And thank you so much for sticking with us and sticking with this project. It is exciting. I know everyone is excited. Right now, Blossom Market is on our minds, but you're next, Ken. You're the one that we're going to be anxious about. When is this going to open? And so thank you for picking our city and our community for this project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, what about Council Member Harrington? Are you still here?
I'm still here. Been here the whole time.
Yes, please say something. So we want to hear from you, about your opinions.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so I do appreciate the effort that's gone into the staff and the developer. I think it shows there's been a lot of work put into this. I really do appreciate the community outreach. I think it's been a very good effort. With that said, I do have some questions for staff at first. I'm not sure how, I might have a couple for the developer too. And I think I'm just going to start with the same thing I said about the last couple of larger developments. I'm not a big fan of the planned development overlay. I think it's an end around our zoning code. I really do. And with that, I just had a couple of questions because I noticed the FAR on this is 1.94. The zoning on commercial or residential in that area would allow a 1.0. So we're basically doubling the size of what's allowed. Now, if you want to get density bonuses, the code is very clear how to get them. You can get up to a 35%. So I think the maximum FAR allowed by code here would, let's say, 1.35. But that goes with adding some low-income housing or very low-income housing or senior housing. There's a few ways to do it. So right here, we've gone well above and beyond the 1.35 into the 1.94. And that includes commercial, mixed use, all of that. So I think I have an issue going that high. Because I would say I appreciate the staff getting these documents to us early, because I've spent several weekends reading them, and I've read them, the entire thing, the entire environmental impact report. And there was a lot of things concerning to me just in the environmental impact report itself that I believe were just out of hand dismissed. Just saying, oh, it's mitigated because we say it's mitigated, but there was no real analysis. It just says, oh, that's not a problem, it's just mitigated. And a lot of them have to do with the amount of density that's coming in here. I mean, I think that is an issue. And so I think my first question to staff, when we go to a plan development overlay, it's the language is very loose. It says the proposal just has to be, it has more flexibility than other applicable projects in the zone as compared to the zone. So I wanted to ask staff, what is the maximum FAR they would ever entertain?
Thank you, Councilmember Harrington. You're correct. If regular project in the C1 zone want to have a mixed use project, the FAR, which is floor area ratio, it is 1, and the proposed project is 1.94. And you're correct that the San Gabriel Municipal Code does talk about the plan development kind of a process where the city council, if city council determined that a project, for example, a size of a project that warrant a special consideration, and staff have reviewed this project and believe that because first of all, the project size is rather very large, one of the few large vacant site in the city was 5.85 acres, and there is a need in the housing with, especially with our arena numbers, close a little bit more than 3,000 units compared to the size of our city. So staff believe that the size of this project and also the number of resident unit this project provides, you will give staff the finding to support this project in front of the council to recommend such approval. And to kind of answer your question about the FAR, it is 1, and for plan development, there's no number provided in the plan development regulations, so it's kind of determined by the council, determine which number is appropriate.
I think that goes to my comment as to what would we allow, because we just had a case come down recently within the last week or so that I think it was San Mateo had a case that because the city council didn't really have an objective standard, that the developer pretty much got to do whatever they want. And I don't want to fall into that here because we don't have an objective standard. It's whatever we say fits. And I'm not compelled to say, oh, we need to fill the arena numbers because there's regional needs, when the last 2 census show San Gabriel is either flat or negative growth. So in other words, we're being brought in to fill in other people's numbers. I agree this is a great site for development, but these standards were in place when this lot, they've been in place since this lot has been there. It's always been 5 acres. And this lot's just been there. So I don't think that's not compelling to me. And also the height as opposed for the density, the code would allow 3 stories or 45 feet. So we've gone significantly above that. If you go by the number of units, the code would allow 112. We've gone up double that, actually over double that. So even with the density, we're 75% above the highest density allowed by code. So that to me is not flexible. Flexible, that's bending over backwards. And then again, that's more than just flexible to me. So I think we really need to look at these early on when we're talking about these things. And some of this comes up later in related comments, but that'll be my first comment is it seems like we've really put a lot more development there than it should be, according to our code or any real stretch of the code. We've stretched to a point where it's beyond stretched. And I just wanted to know if any other project alternatives were explored. Like, let's say we did it per the code, and let's say we went up to 160 units. which would be about roughly with the density bonus. But that would also provide low-income housing or very low-income housing that our city desperately needs. What would be the financial impact of that? So, for example, we granted the full 35%, but then we get basically 20% of low-income housing, or I'm sorry, 20% of very low income, or 15% of low income. So, if you think about it, if we could get the latter, which would be the very low income, then we would have a diversity of residents as well, as far as income diversity, because then we're mixing in people and we're still following our code. To me, I mean, I know the numbers have to pan out, but at the same time, we also have to make room for our residents, like Councilmember Menchaca said, that aren't going to be able to buy here. That affords the opportunity for very low income to purchase here, which now they don't have. That I don't foresee a very low income family being able to purchase here. So that's a comment I have there as well. There is a reason we have these code sections, and that's because these were well thought out, and I think they still apply. I think they were designed to help with these issues. And that's why I started off with, I'm not a big fan of the plan development overlay, because it really goes around the code. So I'll go to my next section. I think I'll have that as a placeholder for a few of the other questions I had. I think on the EIR on page, I think it's marked page 29 of the EIR. If you go to the staff numbering on the master numbering, it's actually page 25 of the EIR. It's the red 29. H, the second bolded paragraph. What I did when I said there's no real analysis, it says the project would. This is regarding the land use is that the proposed project would not cause a significant effect due to conflict with any land use policy or regulations. Well, this goes right back to the FAR. The mitigation is that the project we're going to amend the zoning so that it doesn't conflict. Well, that's not really mitigating. The whole reason the zoning exists was to prevent this type of density. That was the idea, and we could be flexible. But almost doubling I would say is more than flexible. So that's my previous comment when I said, when I read the EIR, we're basically saying in plain English, it doesn't violate any of the regulations, because we've wholly gone away from the regulations and just said they don't matter. That we're just going to say, because we have these needs, they don't matter. And so I mean, that's when I start seeing these. When I read through this, there's several of them like that. There's just kind of an off, like, well, there's no impact. Along those lines, I'm going to go to page 32 on the EIR, and this is one I've had on several projects in the past, and this might be for Chief Wallace, because this one was concerning to me. This is the first time I've seen it put in writing. This is regarding fire protection, and it says, and you go down to the last paragraph, it discusses like basically the way we operate. And it's the paragraph says, however, the San Gabriel Fire Department has indicated that an additional 6 rescue ambulance personnel and 9 engine company personnel could be necessary as a result of this project. I'm not sure what could be necessary means, but to me, when it could necessitate, not need, necessitate basically 15 additional firemen or firefighters, that's a lot. But then it goes on to say basically that it kind of just tapers off and said, but we're not really going to get to that now. So I wanted to get Chief Wallace's, if he's here, Chief Wallace's view of that. I think that is a professional opinion that I can't make. I can just read it in the environmental impact and say, how do we account for that? Because this will be a cumulative effect on the previous ones. I had the same question in the previous ones. At what point can we no longer approve these, because we have so many of these that are either this one higher than we can get ourselves with. If we don't have a hook and ladder, we're not getting to the 5th floor to fight a fire. We have to go up the stairs. So can you chime in on that, Chief Wallace?
Yeah, I certainly can, Councilmember Harrington. I think you're absolutely hitting it on the head with the cumulative effect. It's not going to be this specific project that will push it over that, but with the number of things could possibly be in the pipeline and what we see coming into the city will have a cumulative effect. of raising the needs and services that our fire department needs to deliver. And this project would certainly be part of what's going to contribute to that. I hope that clears that up.
Well, it does, except I think this is the cumulative effect. That's kind of what my question is, because this, according to the EIR, this is adding 0.67% to the San Gabriel population potential, 800 people. And that's what the EIR says. So that's a pretty significant single project impact, 0.67% of our population. So when it says it could be necessary as a result, what analysis have we done? Have there been any metrics or any numerical analysis, or is it just we're going to wait until it's that late and then all of a sudden the cumulative effect gets dumped on the last developer in line? And like we said, this is probably the single largest lot that's getting developed right now.
Just to add a little bit more to that, this was written with the assumption that we're going to move forward with another standards of cover survey. We'll update what we did in I believe it was 2016, which based our services and our service delivery on what existed at the time, not what the future needs were going to be. At this point, we're going to go back. We're going to revisit our whole fire service delivery model, including a standards of cover survey, which will these questions will be posed directly to that. In this EIR, I was sort of making some assumptions based on the level of development we were seeing in the city, and we will either get that validated or come up with alternatives in a new standards of cover survey.
Yeah, I think after this if this is approved, that ship has sailed as to this project. And so let's just say right now the mitigation was to hire these additional firefighters or possibly get a hook and ladder or whatever the mitigation is. That's going to be passed on to the next developer, not to this developer who is part of the cumulative impact. So I think and this might be a Keith question, how could we have a placeholder in this development agreement for that case scenario where, hey, the next person's coming in with the exact same type of development, and now it's not a question of we may need or this could be necessary, but it is absolutely necessary. We need nine people on the engine company and 6 on the rescue ambulance. How do we account for that? We aren't going to have a budget for that without some help from these developers.
Councilmember Harrington, it's Chief Wallace again. Let me just chime in on one more piece. If this were to be built tomorrow, we would have the capability through our automatic aid agreements to service a facility. What we would not have is a capability within our very own agency if there's nothing else available to take care of this facility.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes to my comment. I don't know how many times, how many of these projects we can bootstrap in with the same type of comments. Like, well, we can do it now, but we have to really look at it. Because to me, it's, I always think of the regional event, not just if this building has an emergency. What happens in a big earthquake? We would have no way to service this and the Hilton and the Sheraton and the Rubio and all these other projects that are up at 5 stories. We couldn't handle it. And I wouldn't cross my fingers that mutual aid is coming on that with the hook and ladder, because they'll all be busy and we'll be sitting here twiddling our thumbs. So that was my comment on that, because that one hit me, the ability to protect the people in this building, as well as other projects that are 5 stories, 6 stories, that I think we're ad hoc adding them, but not really. And I think the cumulative effect is at the point of saturation now. That was just my comment on that. But just specifically, what would be, I think I asked you this the same thing last time, what would be the plan on a 5th story fire? How do we fight that? Do we just wait for mutual aid? I know we go in, but imagine it's staircases.
There are staircases. There also is as you said, we have very robust automatic aid. It would come from not only our Verdugo partners, but being that it's east of Del Mar Avenue, it would have a significant response from the county. And I think the chances of it. Pardon me?
I'm assuming we have good water pressure in that area to get up.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, that was my. I have a couple more of these that were just kind of. To me, they stuck out because they're not on less than significant impact. These are significant impact issues in the EIR, which I think, I think we really do need to pay attention to those.
I will say that continued development like this in the city will impact the fire department operations, and I'm looking for another discussion with council on that after we get a standards of cover survey and we sort of move into a state of the fire department and our needs in the future.
Yeah, because I would really like to see a placeholder in this development agreement, just in case there is some financial impact that the city can basically protect ourselves from an oversight. I see that as an oversight because we don't know it. We're saying we don't know exactly whether we need it. It says it could be needed. So that's just something I would add to that if possible. To the development agreement is that there may be an impact that has gone that has not been included yet that could be negotiated at a later date. So this one, I think the next one is page 38 of the EIR, page 34, page 38 on the master numbering, the red numbering. And this is regarding water supplies available. And I know California has a really funky system as far as we always say we have the water, but then right now the governor's talking about rationing water and literally turning water off at certain points to different areas. So I wanted to get staff's opinion as to, this is not a significant impact. We've got plenty of water to service this project, because to me, those two things aren't lining up. When at a state level, we're saying we can't, the Colorado River's running dry, we can't service, we're low in water, we're entering a drought, or we hit a drought again, but we're saying there's plenty of water. So I want to know, do we have any numerical statistics or numerical numbers to back that up, that we got plenty of water for 800 people in on this commercial?
Staff can kind of respond. For any project of this size, we always, in addition to Public Works Department, always require the applicant or the developer to reach out to the local water or wastewater agency to ensure there's a capacity. In this case, the applicant did reach out to in this case, I think it was San Gabriel County Water District. So hopefully the applicant can provide a more dialogue history with the county water district regarding the water supply. Usually they will get like a well-served letter from the agency to ensure the development of a certain size will have the capacity, or whatever the line will have capacity to serve this particular development.
Okay, this might be a question for Keith, because I know he knows water districts decently well. Could a water district deny saying they don't have enough water, or would they be sued for that?
The water district has a responsibility. Well, yeah, the answer is yeah, the water district could deny it if it didn't have sufficient water resources. But to answer your bigger question, how is it that we could have a drought statewide and then locally we've got, the ability to develop? How's that work? And I think the answer to that question is there's been a lot of effort put in on the regional level regarding water storage and development of local water resources. Even though the population has increased in Southern California over the years, we've actually held our water use steady, or it's actually decreased in certain areas due to conservation efforts, as well as water reuse projects. And then in addition to that, there's been a lot of effort locally in storage. A big storage location is the San Gabriel Valley itself, which has a groundwater basin that they're constantly adding water into from the Colorado River when it's available. And the goal is always to bring in as much water as you can in wet years and keep it in the ground, and then hopefully you can ride out the dry years. We're not quite there yet, but there's also, I think you're probably aware, there's some very large recycled water projects through the county sanitation districts that they're working on. There's desalination projects going on in other parts of the city that will free up sort of more water, more state project water and Colorado River water for use in this area. So we're working on it, I guess is the way I would describe it. And the good news is that Southern California has been working so hard on this problem in the last few years that's why you're not hearing, the state of panic from the local water agencies the same way you're hearing it in Northern California, where they don't have all the storage projects. And obviously, if things continue through a drought, we'll have, it could become more severe down here. But right now, we're actually doing okay.
No, I get that. I get it. Maybe we just had that study session or the presentation a couple of meetings back. I remember that.
That's right. Tom Love was here.
Yep. Yep. Okay, I'll just leave that one to staff. Now going to page, where is it? 59 regarding project alternatives, and it's section 5.2.2. It seems like, once again, I'll bring up the same comment. The code compliant alternative, there's not really any analysis whatsoever other than what it says. While the code compliant alternative would meet some of the project objectives, not all would be met. And then you read through it and it meets all of the project objectives except for, it says somehow, and it doesn't say why, it just says, however, potential impacts relative to geology and soils, paleontological resources, and I guess that's because they'd have to dig a little more because of the underground parking. Hydrology and water quality, recreation and tribal cultures would be greater under the code compliant alternative compared with the project. But it doesn't say how. There's no analysis. Not one of those has the why. So that's something I would like to see in an environmental impact report. If you're going to just it says the most of them would be met, but not all. To me, there's no analysis whatsoever. And I don't know how many people actually read these. I mean, I'm not reading it for my pleasure. I'm reading it because that's our responsibility, because we have to make findings that these are all mitigated. And I don't see how a code compliant alternative would not be the best for the environment. It's smaller, less people, less traffic, less emissions, less traffic. I mean, you can go right down the list. It wouldn't be 5 stories, it'd be 3 stories, no light pollution, less drain on the energy, less sewer system, less water use. You go down the line. So you're talking about environmental impact, of course, less carbon emissions, less anything you can name because there's less people there. So the digging, I'm not sure. I mean, once you start digging, the disturbing, yeah, you might disturb more, but I believe the majority of that site is going to get soil disturbance. This is a matter of depth. And the majority, I've talked with Nikish quite a bit, the majority of the paleontological finds are going to be in the first 10 feet. I mean, that's the first 8 feet, 10 feet. So I think that one is even a red herring. I think it's going to be about the same. And I don't understand how the water quality is reduced by doing a smaller project. I mean, that's what I'm saying when I said there's no analysis. It doesn't have the why or the how. It just says it's not. And I don't think I can say that we've met the burden of saying that a code compliant alternative is not the superior building here. A part of that also is that the code compliant wouldn't provide the same size central plaza for events. I don't know. I haven't seen the design, so I don't know that we had any code compliant designs ever submitted. So that's another statement that's speculative at best. So I'll leave that, but I just don't think we met that burden, because I think there are alternative designs that would work that meet all of the objectives. And regarding the reduced density, so that would be more density than the code compliant, which would be along the lines of what the code requires, which would be, we get low income housing, and then we get increased density, which that's kind of, you get a really good bonus for having the low income housing. So really, in essence, what we've done with our FAR and this planned development is we've done nothing for low income. We've just increased density, which to me, that's great, but we really should be actually finding places for low income housing. I'm not a big fan of moving the low income housing to a different site. I mean, that's just, to me, that's not a tenable solution, because if we always talk about diversity and inclusion, that should include living spaces as well, not putting all of the low income housing in one spot. It'd be nice to have them dispersed throughout the community. Let me see. So I got 2 more things and notes. Okay, so I think with that, I wanted to get into the actual findings that we have to make. Let me find that on the recital. So that would be where is it? I think it's attachment A, I believe. Attachment A, page 2. One of the findings that we have to make, because if we don't make all of these findings, if one of the findings we can't make it, we would have to reject the project. And this goes back to the FAR and the density. So finding D says the overall, this says the site is not physically suitable for the proposed density of development. So if we make that finding, we can't approve the project. And with all the things I've said, I think there's a real question there. The overall development will conform to all applicable development standards of the zoning requirements with the application of the plan development overlay. All impacts resulting from the project will be reduced to less than significant levels through the implementation of mitigation measures as per the EIR. So I think we have an EIR actually it's lacking. It doesn't really address the density at all, and it's kind of throughout the project itself. So it says, and therefore the proposed density of the project development is suitable for the project site. Well, I don't believe it is. And with that, I'll go to the actual development agreement itself. So if you go to the development agreement, Exhibit 2, page 6, in the development agreement, there are site backs regarding density, and all of the density. I'll read an example, but they're all very similar. So I'll give you the definition. Under the definitions, next page 9 of the definitions. It basically says existing development regulations shall mean the city laws, ordinance, rules, regulations, policies, motions, directives, and you keep going down. But it says in the effective date established or regulating the design, density, or permitted land uses. So when we're talking about density, it goes back to the code. And so what we've in effect done is nullified the entire code and said, because we say so, the density doesn't apply. So we've created a giant circular argument by basically ignoring the density requirements of the code, saying we can make it as dense as we want, therefore it complies with the EIR, therefore we can just build this project and make all these findings. But all of these things are, the linchpin of all of them is just saying, we can say the density is what it is. The council is not bound by the code. We don't have to go through the variance procedure because it's over an acre. I don't agree with that. Along those lines, the recital section E on page 6 says that the regulations and official policies govern permitted land uses, governing density and intensity of uses. You can see where I'm going with that. You go to page 11 in the agreement. It's page 7 to 11 of the numbering. It says the existing development regulations, section 402A1. And once again, it says, by way of example, but not limitation, design, density, grading, construction, all have to be within the code requirements. Page 16. Section 404, general permitted use. And this is uses, I understand it's not the same as the construction, but it says the permitted uses, density and intensity of use, maximum height, and other development standards provisions of the reservation or dedication of land. So my whole point here is we have been adding all of this density, almost twice the density allowed, or 70% if you go by low income standards, bonuses. Yet it's all based on something where no one could point to a code section where it says how much the staff can allow, how much the city council can allow. So we have no objective standard anywhere. But this development agreement makes it appear as if there's a subjective standard, because it says all of the standards in the code that are in place at the time of the signing of the agreement. That's why, when I go back to the actual code, I look at, section 153 or 454, which is how you calculate density. And then I go back to the planned unit development once again. The purpose of it, I think, is exacerbated because we're being way more than flexible. But even that, when you get into the use is permitted. I think this is where we get into the rezoning and the combining of commercial and residential in one zone. And it says buildings or structures, such building, structure, or use is constructed or maintained pursuant to the regulations applicable to such lot by reason of its underlying zone classification. To me, when I interpret that, it means that if we're going to do the planned development zone, it's not saying you can double the FAR, it's saying there's flexibility. So we can do mixed use, we can do some things that may or may not be completely copacetic with the zoning, but it doesn't say here double the FAR. I think we've stretched this beyond the point of absurdity when we're going from a 1.0 to a 1.94. I don't believe the zoning was ever intended to do that or designed to do that or even says that that's allowed. And I think I've said that at least on 3 other occasions that the use of the plan development overlay is at best tentative and probably abused in this case. That's why when we go into negotiating, I think this is what I told Mark last time, because it's a negotiation, a lot of the fee schedule stuff, I think we're getting the short end of that stick in a big way. Because had we stuck to the code, they'd get to go to their 1.35 FAR. The residents would receive the low income housing, which means, you know, we would be able to administer that. And there would definitely be a cost, but there's also a benefit to the developer. Here, I think the benefit we've given to this developer way outweighs the benefit that's coming back to the city. And the comment that 3 million, whatever, 3 point whatever million, 2.8, 3.9 is sufficient, I would argue that if we just followed the code, it would be a much greater benefit to the city, and not just a monetary benefit. It would also be a benefit of allowing seniors and low income people to live here. So I personally can't make all the findings. I think I would have to vote no, just simply because intellectually, being intellectually honest, I don't believe we've followed the code. Granted, it's a great project, great design, but I don't think we've ever, number one, actually penned out or actually even preliminarily designed any of the alternatives that were discussed in the EIR. I think we've gone well beyond what planned development overlay or planned development zone would allow. So I don't think I can support this as it's designed. I have probably 2.5 more pages. I think I've kind of made my point there. I don't want to take more time than that. I think the major ones are addressed, but I would say that in the future, I would hope EIRs have a little more substance to them, because this seemed to wholly dismiss things without analysis. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Harrington. Well, I think that's about it. Everyone delivered their comments. And for me, I think this is a dream project for San Gabriel community. We've been waiting for this type of project for years. We don't have a mainstream grocer, and every day we have to go out to different cities to buy American groceries, and we don't have American restaurant. We have to go to other cities, and we don't have a coffee shop. And fortunately, if we can have Starbucks or Coffee Bean coming to this place, that'd be wonderful. And also, fitness center. I usually go to Rosemead, and people think, "Oh, you live in Rosemead, right? Yeah, that's why you come to Rosemead LA Fitness Center." No, because we don't have one. So this is a great project, and like I said, we've been waiting for this type of facilities and business for a long time, and especially in mixed-use project. A lot of people ask me, "Hey, when this is going to build?" Because they want to live in one of the units, so they don't have to drive. They go downstairs to buy grocery. They go to the gym downstairs. They go to the coffee shop or restaurant downstairs. They don't need to drive. So this is perfect for future, not just seniors, but for young people because that's why we have the lit work units, and they can work from those units. And I especially appreciate the project has the Central Park. Okay, we'll talk about the drought. Yeah, 75% of our water wasted outdoors. We only use maybe 20% at most indoors. So, well, I just want to mention we should keep to drought tolerant plants at the Central Park because and if it's possible, yeah, keep it to minimal. But a palm tree doesn't take too much water. But and especially the tribute role, I appreciate the developers. Yeah, they want to pay the tribute to the legacy of the San Gabriel nursery of this Yoshimura family. And I have worked with, well, sister cities. And for the past 2 years, I'm trying to find, Yoshimura's family coming from in Japan. I think it's, yeah, I'm sure it's the one of the town. But I did talk to one of their seniors, Mr. Ishii, and well, he's so humble. He doesn't want to do anything. But I think in the future, if it's possible, I'm just requesting the developer, if we do have a sister city with their hometown in Japan, and can we have preserve a small place, a plaque just to say, hey, this sister city, San Gabriel, was yeah, one of the cities that their families are coming from. So, I would appreciate that. But also, I think this is a great project that can appreciate what the immigrants, either they came from Japan, Taiwan, China, Hong Kong, whatever, and they can bring their own culture and legacy together, and especially with this Plaza Park, I think it's the community center, and we all can come together with harmony and peace and loving and that kind of environment, and for our St. Gabriel community. So I think this is a great project, but I just need someone to move the motion to adopt those 3 items so we can move forward. Is there anyone?
I'll move
Okay.
them. I'll make the motion. I was going to ask, do I need to read them, or do I can just move based on the recommendation that's on the agenda?
Yeah, I think we'll probably just do, adopt the resolution 2142, and then I think it's just 1, 2, 3 all together.
Well, that's the recommendation, but I see Keith's mic is on. Did you want to say something, Keith?
Sure. Yeah, let Keith explain.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could move the recommendation. That includes an ordinance, so you're adopting it by title only as part of the recommendation. So you could move the recommendation.
Okay, well, I will move the recommendation then.
Thank you. And is there a second? If not, I'll second it.
I second.
Okay, and City Clerk, can you take the vote, please?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I ask one question, please, before we vote?
Okay.
Councilman Pu made a recommendation to add I think just one word to the ordinance. We already had a reference to the exhibits. That was the very last page of the development agreement, but that first page, we talk about Exhibit 2. Is that okay with Councilwoman Menchaca that we include that in her motion?
Yes, I accept the amendment.
Okay, yeah, so I'll accept that too as a second. So City Clerk, please take the vote.
Councilmember Harrington,
No.
Councilmember Menchaca,
Yes.
Councilmember Pu, Councilmember Pu,
We can't hear you, Councilmember Pu.
if it's a yes, please put your thumbs up. If it's a no, thumbs down. Thank you. Vice Mayor Ding,
Aye.
Mayor Liao,
Yes.
the motion passed by a vote of 4-1.
Okay, thank you. And I guess, well, there's verbiage regarding this action, but I think we don't need to repeat that. Continue business, none. New business, none. And then public comment.
No
City-
public comments for this section, Mayor.
So no public comment, right? Thank you.
Correct.
So next item is city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two brief things tonight to share with the council and the community. First of all, we kicked off our translated agendas with this agenda tonight. We posted them yesterday. We didn't do a lot of advertising for those because we were still trying to work the bugs out and didn't want to have folks rushing to that website to find those and only to be disappointed if we weren't able to make it happen. But into the future, you can expect that agendas in Spanish, Vietnamese, and Chinese will be posted usually by the Friday before our Tuesday meetings. And we would welcome any feedback that folks have on how we can make that process better for the community. And second of all, I wanted to mention that I have ongoing meetings with Jim Simmons from the San Gabriel Unified School District. And I had a meeting with him last week, and he wanted me to pass along my thanks to the city on the whole, but most specifically with the police department. As you can imagine, with kids coming back to school for the first time, some of them in over a year and a half, the school district has experienced some mental health issues and behavioral issues with the students. And there have been a couple of threats of suicide and other very serious issues. And specifically, Dane Woolwine and Cecily Ramirez from our SCET team, they do a phenomenal job of being in the schools and working as a partner with the school district. So Jim Simmons was up and down thanking us for the help and for the real work that we do in helping the community and specifically those parents and students that are involved. So I do pass that along from Mr. Simmons to the city on the whole. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much. Well, now it's time for council comments and conference meeting reports. Anyone want to go first? Okay, Councilwoman Chaka, go ahead.
Right. First of all, I wanted to let everyone know that today we had a celebration of life luncheon for the BNCC, the longest serving council member. And it was nice to see both the current council, Mayor Val, Councilmember Pu, Councilmember Ding, and myself, and our city manager there to honor his life. And there were so many great stories that were shared today, but we will miss our beloved Sabino Sisi. And I know it meant a lot to the family to have us there. So I just wanted to share that with the community. Second, just a reminder that Harold Christian Health Center is going to be at Jefferson Middle School on Wednesday, September 29th, next week, from 2 to 5, and pre-registration is encouraged. And let's see, we also have a community fair that's coming up, and thanks to our Vice Mayor, Tony Ding, who is president of the Lions Club, and that is scheduled for October 2nd from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Playhouse parking lot. It is free to the community, and they actually have quite a few sponsors. but just a reminder, I think it's going to be a great event and much needed right now. And then please check community services. They have quite a few events, all within the guidelines that are in place, although they keep changing. But where you are going to have a drive-through trunk or treat. I know that's been asked a lot. That will be Friday, October 29th. We are going to have a Dia de los Muertos, and that's going to be Thursday, November 4th. We're going to have the turkey trot. So we're going back to some more normalcy, or normal life, little by little. So please check the website or give a call to community services. And let's see. And I'm sorry, San Gabriel Police Department. They're going to have this Friday their Community Academy breakout session, and from 6 to 8. So be there. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council member have a report? Councilman Pu? Yeah.
His mic isn't working.
Oh, the mic.
We can't hear you.
Oh man. Well, what about Councilmember Harrington?
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Vice Mayor Jean?
Yeah, okay. First of all, today it's Mid-Autumn Festival Day. Okay, tonight it's the moon. It's a really good moon. Okay, when you finish the meeting, go out to take a look at the moon. Okay, so also this is meaning for the festival, the family get together for dinner. After dinner, we'll have the moon cake and the Chinese tea, and even your family's person, it's living in the different area. For example, in the New York, San Francisco, even like Monterey Park, everybody, it's watch the same moon. So also the meaning for the family together. Okay, so it's just use this chance to let the community know the culture. So it's today it's exactly the Mid-Autumn the Moon Festival. So I try use the Chinese. Okay, 今天是中秋节哈，我们正好有 council meeting， 但是我借这个机会祝各位这个中秋节快乐 ，OK， 全家团圆，美满幸福，这千里共婵娟，就算在不同的地方的话，也一起来庆祝啊，那么来吃那个 cake，OK。Also, yeah, it's like Councilman Member Machenga mentioned that we have this San Gabriel Hope Line Cup. It's holding the event on October 2nd. We have the free service for the vision acupuncture. At least I know that we have the one mobile vision clinic will be there, and the mobile testing vaccine. It's from the Chinatown, the service center. They provided the mobile truck too. So and the rest of the like a medical consultant. So and also have the different I think probably almost 40 booths on our parking lot, and so really welcome our community, everybody to attend it, including our city staff and all the council member. Thanks, like community service like Rebecca Press also helped to provide our night the good place for Mission Playa House, next to the Mission Playa House, the parking lot, so we can holding on this kind of the community event, and but still encourage everybody still keep like the wear mask, the keep the social distance. Yeah, it's safety still very important, but we have the like through the 18 months the pandemic, so we need some outdoor, at least I have some outdoor activity, also help our community to like use the fair, the care fair. It's also it's provided like a health event. Okay, yeah. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Thank
Vice
you.
Mayor.
Mhm.
Yes, Councilmember Blue, are you still muted? No? Uh-oh. Well, too bad, we still cannot hear you. Well, next time. So I just want to thank Chief Wallace and all, well, Councilmember, well, actually all the council members show up at the fire station for 9/11 commemoration service. And I want to thank John and Chaka, talk about his older sister, Dora, was killed during 9/11. And I was honored to have this famous artist. He showed up at it was 6:30 in the morning. Anyway, he brought, I don't know, hundreds of posters. It's a replica of his painting. After he saw the 9/11 incident, he drove 3,000 miles to New York City. He stayed there 4.5 months and did this fantastic painting regarding this firefighter trying to raise up the American flag, and then the Statue of Liberty, standing in behind with the torch lighting and showing the ocean, and that brings the hope of the people of America. But most of the interesting thing is after he painted this painting, he was invited. He was invited by President Bush at the time and to visit the White House. So he had a chance to present a copy of the painting to President and to Congress. So we're very honored to have him that day because he is a very, I would say, very famous person around the world. But he also dedicate another copy of this painting to Chief Wallace. So that painting will be hung on the wall of Chief Wallace's office. So it's good to have something like that in our fire department. But that was a great service. So anyway, tomorrow I'm going to Sacramento for a League of County Trustee, and there are many issues. As a matter of fact, SB 9, SB 10, all SB 8, all passed and signed by governor, and maybe there will be discussions during the League of California Cities. But I'm on several policy committee now, so I'll be very busy and talking to try to get into the conversation with transportation, the broadband, and the water issue, and the SB 1383 because it's coming. January 1st, all the cities pretty much have to be ready to comply. But anyway, so that's it for tonight's meeting. And I'll adjourn the meeting till the next regular meeting will be held on Tuesday, October 5th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. And so thank you, everyone, for, it's another long meeting again, but we achieved a lot. So thank you, and I'm very grateful. Good night, everyone.
Okay, so
Good night, everyone.
Good evening.